It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen, the Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
We're launched.
Launched.
We're live.
All right, welcome everybody.
You are not centered in the frame, Michael.
Okay, let me get myself in a position here. I think,
Like right here, Tommy, like this, or?
Oh
All right,
my.
okay.
Sorry about the ad hoc.
We're just kind of trying new
Reassembly.
things, folks, and bear with us because we just want to make the viewing experience as pleasurable as possible.
It'll become clear why we're having some
We will?
challenges.
I'm kind of curious why
Here
are
in a
we?
minute.
You think we'd have it together by this point?
You would think, but we don't.
So we got a lot to talk about. I'm still kind of trying to get some things in order here. But what's the name of the show and what episode is this? No help.
This is the Tales of Dirty Dan,
Tales of Dirty Dan.
episode.
We'll get
Or
back.
something.
We'll get back to you on the episode.
Yeah, we're going to get that.
We got a lot going on. I know that. There's a lot of topics. I think we got about 450 topics to talk about tonight.
474. By the way,
stuff going on.
474.
So we're starting. Did the show start? I just want to make sure. We're live? Okay.
Are we live, Dirty Dan? Dirty Dan says we're live.
We're live.
We're live.
Dirty Dan says we are live.
Okay. Do we have a...
Do we have
An
a quorum?
outline itinerary.
yeah.
We do. So we'll go over it. First, we're going to greet the audience.
Where's it? Send it to me.
So, hello, audience.
I think it'd be printed out.
You got to give
gonna-
a
I'm going to...
Forward.
hello.
I'm sending it
Here we
to
go.
you.
You got it.
All right.
Got
All right,
it.
so it's today's 723. It's episode number 474. You're officially listening to Planet Green Trees. It's called There Was a Time Before We Were Born. It's an episode title. Kind of greeted everybody. We're going to tease the topics and then guest tease as
And then we're
well.
going to tease the guest.
The topics tonight are, come on, fast-growing Michigan recreational cannabis market faces tight supply. Few municipalities are opting in. Michigan's social equity regulations help cannabis applicants get started but lack continued support. Wrongfully accused by an algorithm. Jim's going to explain that one. And Whitmer's return to school roadmap. You're listening to Michigan's #1 podcast about cannabis legal issues, licensing regulations, compliance, etc. And as I said, I'm your host, Michael Komorn. With us tonight, we're going to go around the room and introduce everybody real quick here. The bunker has been invaded by Dirty Dan. He's running the board over there.
Dirty Dan.
Dirty Dan.
He's getting the bunker dirty tonight.
He is.
Yes.
It's
His viral
as
load
dirty
is
as
all
I've ever
over the
seen
place.
it, quite frankly.
So,
Many
Pig pen.
Many lyrics have been written about this already. You'd be surprised. Thanks to the bunker and for being here. And we have Jim Powers over here who's quick to tell
Jimmy
me that
the
he has
Peppa.
the
Here I am.
list and is ready to go. Jim, what's going on tonight? How you feeling?
Feeling good. Good
All right.
evening, everybody. It's great to be here amongst all of you here in the PGT bunker, I guess. So that's all
The
good.
war room, we've called it
It is the
before,
war
huh,
room.
Jeff?
It is the war room. Glad to have Dirty Dan driving the bus. We haven't hit a yet, but
No.
it's plenty of time.
Just getting a little
Plenty
dirty.
of time. And it's going to be a great show. We've got some great topics, maybe a couple surprises.
Yes, sir.
I think Steve's CEC is coming
We're
back.
going to do
Oh,
the
yeah.
CEC tonight. We
So-
haven't done it in a couple of weeks, and I'm having withdrawals.
We gotta bring
And,
that back.
You know, I've got to discuss some the real news I found, which maybe is not so real.
Well,
But I'll go over my methodology and all of that, and you know, and I got a new show where my son and I have been watching. So I'll
very nice.
and trying to think if I've watched a good movie recently. Not yet, but I think I'm going to watch the Naked Gun series with my
Oh,
son.
yeah.
Leslie
Yeah.
Nielsen?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
always fun. It's always a winner.
It always
You
is.
can't lose.
Yeah, you can't with that. So
I'm reminded of the old saying that you can take the guy out of the police force, but you can't take the police force out of the guy. He's got to get his police academy, police Leslie Nielsen, Naked Gun. Good policing. It's good. It's funny. They should have been showing those movies in the '90s instead of
Die Hard.
Die Hard and Bruce Willis and
Miami Vice. And God, they cops had so much fun on TV, didn't they?
Oh, my.
yeah.
That is why I wanted to become a cop, Jim.
Yeah.
They had fun.
Did you
Those
have
guys
fun?
on Miami Vice drove cool cars, fast boats.
They got
wore
all the chicks.
great clothes, got all the chicks.
Yeah.
Damn right. I wanted to get in the police force and go right into narcotics enforcement.
Yeah.
That was the message they sent us with all the programming back then in the 80s.
There was they do an episode about this on Family Guy, and Brian becomes like the trained drug dog, and of course he gets addicted to
cocaine.
Yep, he does. It's a great episode.
Oops.
And I think they even let it go on for a little while because he's so good at his job, you know. They don't care, kind of.
That's exactly what
I mean, but they do a good job at some of the. All right, so moving on, we've got Amanda Jocelyn straight out of the elevation station. You can tell she's elevated tonight.
Heck
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
straight out of the
And,
elevation station.
Amanda's the top organizer now for Planet Green Trees and doing an
She's doing
outstanding job.
excellent.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you. It's quite an honor to be involved with the group, and we've got a great show coming up tonight. And stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in.
You may want to check out some of the Planet Green Trees TV YouTube clips that have Amanda doing some Amanda Jocelyn news.
What's going on with
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Is that coming back?
The Amanda Report, we do have a couple of episodes posted on the Planet Green Trees TV YouTube station, so be sure to tune in there. There are new episodes added all the time, and they range from entertaining topics to real serious stuff. And so you never know what you're going to get when you click on the play button.
There you go.
All right. I
Just-
like it.
Although
I
it's
like
not
it.
obscenity, we can assure you that it's not
No,
obscenity.
it's
But-
PG-rated.
Right.
Sometimes, like, I don't know, like, maybe an
Yeah.
R rating.
Maybe. There's some pretty intense topics. that-
Language,
Sometimes,
language,
sometimes
language.
there are
Tackled,
sensitive
yeah.
topics that would,
So-
you'd want to limit your audience, viewers, if you have children or something. Then,
Yeah.
you may want to ask them to leave the room. But
maybe.
one thing that we can guarantee is that it is certainly entertaining.
It definitely is. Especially the Pikachu with the assault rifle.
Oh yeah,
That was fun.
yes, it was.
You did a Pikachu with an assault rifle?
Oh yeah, you got to tune in for the one where we were down in Lansing, and there was a Pikachu with an assault rifle, AK.
Okay, I did see that.
Yeah, it was,
It was
something
it
I've
was
never
really
seen
weird.
before.
Yeah, exactly. It was unique. Never put those two together.
And you know what?
No, you wouldn't.
People are getting really weird these days.
Yeah, so as we move forward with these Amanda reports, what we see is just that, Esteban. We see that things are getting more strange as the days go on.
And we're not going to see that kind of stuff from our mainstream media.
No, you won't, because you're getting the real deal, uncut reporting
No.
right
right.
here every Thursday.
That's what you really got to
Planet Green
start
Trees.
searching out your news these days. Get away from the mainstream media and find other sources and things that are good, like our field reporting on Planet Green Trees.
Absolutely.
So if you didn't know, Steve Miller's here. He's got a great catalog of music.
He does. And
think
maybe he'll play some of that. Maybe he'll strum a
Maybe.
few tunes tonight with.
Well, we'd have to go a cappella.
Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't take the money and run.
Has anybody got a karaoke machine?
Just for the record, Steve, you're already a cappella. A cappella means with the hat off.
Oh, really? I thought it referred to singing without music.
That's what I thought. We just learned something.
You had to know Italian to get that joke. Sorry.
Oh.
So looking forward to tonight's
I
show.
got a little Irish over here.
I
Jeff got it.
spoke with Peter Lucido today. He had a event going tonight, a birthday bash and a fundraiser combo for him. So happy birthday to
Birthday.
Peter Lucido,
Senator
and
Lucido,
he does want to come on the show.
Great.
So we're going to get it. Peter has been, I think, really our ally in a lot of areas.
I'm excited.
Yep.
I think it'll be a good
And
dialogue. And he's a passionate guy, so it's
Yes.
a good debate with him.
Oh,
And you know what? He and Jeff Irwin are the politicians that I can just go up and talk to, have a normal conversation with. I can tell my thoughts on whatever bills are going forward. And you know what? They'll take and they'll put stuff in there if it gets kicked back to them. And they'll take, you know, Jeff Irwin did that on a bill, on one of the medibles bills or something. Or no, it was the forfeiture, I believe.
Bring up the cannabis expungement bill to them and ask them to add in growing and
Absolutely.
transferring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully the goal is to have him on maybe next week or the week after. But yeah.
We let him know that, Jimmy. Be certain of that. He was on the phone with Steve, and Steve was talking to him like, "Hey, I want to get you on so I can tell you some things, and you can talk to me because you put in the bills." I was like, "We want to know what's going on with the."
He was. Michael's yelling in the background.
I was like, "Find out what's going on with the Judiciary Committee." He's like, "Oh, we just met today." I'm like, "What a great time to come on the show!" But I think he'll come back.
Yeah, he wants to come on, and I've always had a good relationship with him, and I like him. I mean, some of these politicians you talk, I've went in and gone face-to-face meetings with, some of the politicians before going in and testifying at these hearings. And some of these guys, for lack of a better terms, are a bunch of douchebags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And girls,
Well said.
for that matter. I mean, some of these, I've met with both men and women politicians behind closed doors before these hearings.
It's like any
and
other
it's
group
like
of people,
it's a
right?
waste of time almost. It's like they really don't care what you have to say. They have their mind made up on what they're going to do, and they don't care.
Yeah.
But I don't get that from Jeff Irwin or Peter Lucido. And they're on, one's a Democrat, one's a Republican, but I like them both.
And even though they don't really say it all the time, they'll tell you that the government is not easy to work in. I mean, I think it's got ideas to have the growers and beyond that part of the expungement bill, but very clearly said the only bill that has any chance of survival is the one about possession only. Nevertheless, we're trying to get him back on next week. I see we have some Zoom people. One guy.
Zoom-a-loom.
One guy. What's that biblical story? The guy gets his hair cut and then he's got no strength. That's not this guy. That's not him. I know that because his strength is in his heart. Our internationally renowned guitar player and iguana lover, straight out of the Galapagos Islands, about to be a granddaddy.
Yes, he is.
What?
Oh,
Are you? Congratulations.
Frazier. Jeff Frazier.
Samson.
More water in the soup. Hey, Michael. Hey, everybody. It's great to be on. Always great to be on. How's it? Wishing you well from Texas. Not quite so far south.
The hair looks great, by the way. It really does. It's.
I just noticed that he got a haircut.
Jamie may have also. Jamie, but he checks the stuff. All right, so we've got.
Look at that, Jeff, cleaning up.
Moving around the room
What,
here.
did you have to go get a real job, Jeff? Is that why you did that?
Haircut and a job.
Well, that kind of stinks, but the hair looks good.
We've got. As he always does, he's participating via Zoom. He's a master of Zoom.
Oh, I know who that is.
He is the Zoom
Maybe
master.
best dressed tonight. He's also known in some circles as the Rasta Rabbi.
Yes.
He's our good
He's
friend Alan.
Protein.
Alan, Uncle
The
Alan.
one and
Pizer.
only.
Thank you. It's great to be here on Planet Green Trees this evening. Just want to remind everybody that if they have any problems relating to criminal defense or marijuana, to call Komorn Law or go to ComornLaw.com. If you need to call us, the number is 800-656-3557, and they sponsor this show on marijuana every week.
And we always love to hear you say that, too. You say it
That's
so
good.
nicely.
Yeah.
It could be noted, I might even add to this for the writing next week, Alan, but we are undefeated. And we're pitching like no hitters and hitting grand slams every at bat on the licensing. I don't
Yes,
think
we
had
are.
A client who's
Yes,
not,
we are.
when applied, they've. All right. And then,
We
of
got
course, I see that we have the person who is responsible for everything. He's not in his superhero outfit tonight, but we can all imagine what it looks like.
Well, he's incognito tonight. He doesn't want everybody to know all the time, but we know who he is. And yes, he is responsible for everything, from my understanding as well.
Jamie Lowell, please welcome him.
Hello. Happy to be here. So before I forget, on Saturday, the Botanical Company and Northeast Michigan Normal, and this is put on by Northeast Michigan Normal Botanical Company sponsoring it, we're doing a highway cleanup. So those in Northeast Michigan,
Excellent.
in East Tawas behind the Botanical Company, which is 1885 US 23 East Tawas. We'll be meeting there and then organizing and cleaning up garbage for several hours on the highway. And Razor Ray Reyes will be there with his loop station and guitar and helping to entertain people and hang out with us, the volunteers and stuff like that. Also, I came on a little bit late. I don't know if it was addressed, and Alan posted it on Safer Mich, and I concur that the ruling in the Board of Pharmacy lawsuit is bullshit.
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 Yes.
That should get discussed a little bit today too, if that wasn't already on the docket.
Hey, Jamie, real quick before we move on, what did you say the address for the Botanical Company was?
1885 US 23.
Okay.
East
Amy? Okay.
Got
Amy,
it.
what is the starting time of that? What time's everybody going to meet there?
People are meeting between 9 and 9:30 behind Botanical Company.
Okay, thank you.
And Jamie, you said this is called a highway cleanup to get like the garbage off. And I was just
Northeast Michigan Normal does it every year. Yep.
sure. I was going to say in police circles that's called traffic
Chain gang.
Safety. Just kidding.
Free labor, yeah.
Right. So I was going to say since we set the topics for this week, like 19 things have happened as it goes, just in the last like 3 hours. The Sinclair opinion came out. We're going to talk about that. Jeff Frazier, who was deeply involved with helping to pen that, will also comment on that. We get that to the agenda. I do want to say, do we cover everybody? Rick,
You know what would be great?
Rick is not here, right?
What would be really nice is if Dana could come on and tell us about the Sinclair case. I'd really like to hear her opinion on it.
That would
I
be
doubt
a great.
that's going to happen.
That'd be a great addition.
Apparently, we reached out to her, and she now requires submitting of questions before she'll come on and be interviewed.
We wanted to get
Submitting of questions.
We needed to generate a list of questions so they could decide whether they.
I never
come on the show.
would have thought that would be the situation. with her.
No, never.
Thank you, Jamie.
Here we are.
You know, it certainly wasn't. Where's Jeff Frazier? It certainly wasn't when you, Jeff, and I went and met in her office a couple of years back, and she asked for your support, and you rallied the troops
Clearly.
behind her and won her the election, Michael. You
Yeah,
did.
Raised
gave
a
her a
bunch
lot
of
of
money.
money. A lot of money was donated.
I want to go back to Jamie's reaction, which is usually tempered and unspoken sometimes in this area. What did you say, Jamie? What was your response?
Yeah, please.
You were
please.
what?
I never thought that would be the case with her, with an interview, that she would have to have the questions submitted first.
Well, because she knows she's done wrong.
I could tell when she was in that interview with Young Dems that she was feeling weird about trying to claim that she was really coming through for the
Yeah, I bet.
community that got her voted in.
I bet.
Mark it right here, because this is the first time I've really heard Jamie cross the neutrality line.
Yeah, this is going to be on the calendar.
Well, I mean, what's going to happen is...
I mean, we all know that there's extreme. I'm sorry, Jim, but extreme disappointment, but not as outspoken as maybe that, especially from Jamie. But go ahead, Jim.
I mean, it was not a landslide victory in the election, and I mean, frankly, if
like a sliver of hair.
Dana wants to win the next election, it would be wise to try and rally the marijuana community again.
She's
behind
not going
her.
to do it, Jim.
And it would be really easy. I mean, having a dialogue about the Sinclair case, I think, is a great place to start, and that's a good faith effort. And that is the type of thing that can win you elections.
But
I think it would be smart.
With what's happened with the St. Clair case and Sinclair, rather, I said St. Clair, Sinclair case, is that... What the hell was I going to say?
All right. So
The fact is, the case demonstrates the law is intellectually
we're not talking
dishonest.
about it yet. We're
Okay,
not
what I was gonna
stop.
say.
We're
Stop,
teasing the
stop,
topic,
Stop.
Alan.
We're not talking about it
Okay.
yet. I want to make an announcement, and then we'll talk about the Sinclair case with some.
But first, take a break. Dirty Dan said, sorry.
Okay. Before we break, I want to do this. A friend of ours, his wife, is starring in a movie.
Really?
And I want to bring this to everybody's attention. It's called The Fallen Judge. It's put on by G1 NBC Studios. And Lorena Lynn is the judge. This is my friend's ex-wife, who was starring in it. And the story is based on the rise and fall of 53rd District Court Judge Teresa Brennan.
Oh.
I also also sent the video from episode, and I got to find it, make sure that because I do think if anyone's still interested in that topic, it's be fun to go back and watch that. But let's see. It's episode number, I don't know. Give me a second there. It's
444.
444. And in episode 444 of Planet Green Trees TV, which you can find on the Komorn Law or Planet Green Trees TV YouTube.
This is going to be
And
juicy.
about 55 minutes into that 2 hours of bliss, we begin to discuss the fall of Judge Brennan. And then about 1 minute and 3 minutes in, we begin to involved in all the characters here, all the people here played various characters, and it's a really well acted scene.
Really well done,
and
especially Steve.
But I'm sending that video to the producers, and not that we're going to get acting parts or they're going to use ours, but
they should.
But they should.
They should.
That was very quality material,
and we were out ahead of the curve.
I could play
we came up with it before
detective.
they got. We were all over it.
There might be a sex scene you have to do with.
Although I'm probably too good looking to play that guy, I bet.
Well, you're gonna have to do a sex scene.
Right, you have to do a sex scene with the actress Teresa Brennan and discuss the case in pillow talk. Pillow talk. All right, we're taking a break and then we're coming back.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break and come back and we can get into some topics. But I'm going to tell you that whatever's on the list, we're probably going to have to alter that.
Whatever. You're listening to Planet
Episode
Green
number.
Trees.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Okay, we'll be right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
Which is it? Pretty much.
We're back.
All right, we're back.
Oh, shit.
Alan, we're back. We're listening to Planet Green Trees 470, what? 7? Something? Doesn't matter. All right, so,
72.5.
Alan, what was the name of the studio? People want to go watch that and regarding the fallen judge?
It was G1 NBC, and I put it on a screen share here for everybody to look at briefly.
All right, good. Appreciate that.
Okay, I'll take it down.
I can't see it. Can we? All right, nevertheless, so we were talking about the government a little bit and the administration pro-cannabis and how we did put a lot of time. And Jamie, I'm gonna work off of your emotional reaction to being surprised that the AG would require questions in advance so that our level of comfort would be eased in talking with us. But we know we have before us the John Sinclair case that was represented by the state of Michigan and specifically the Attorney General's office. And you'll notice that our request to unschedule cannabis is met with opposition at the greatest level.
Yep.
And every possible legal argument that could be utilized to try to defeat that idea, despite maybe intimation or even promises to the contrary during the campaign. But let's put that aside for a second, because when we decide to bring that up and utilize it and analyze it for what happened here and give some positive outcomes from it, we'll do it in a more specific and organized way. I do want to, while we're on this topic, draw some other attention to another topic that is quite remarkable, and I think it should be discussed and maybe even efforts made to bring attention and awareness to this. But in conjunction with the outcome of this administrative licensing case that we had, there's certainly a conversation to be had, but it goes something like this. This week, Komorn Law PLC is proud to announce a huge win and long, hard-fought victory. Who knew that Lara was punishing registered nurses merely because they are medical cannabis patients? Who knew that the same government agency, Lara, that regulates the licensing of physicians who recommend the use of medical cannabis and also regulate the licensing of registered nurses, punishes those same licensed registered nurses by suspending or attempting to revoke their nurse license merely for following the medical advice and prescribed medical treatments made to them by their state licensed physician. A lot of stuff in that sentence.
The insanity is beyond
the point being, though, that in order for you to get a to utilize medical cannabis, you have to have a recommendation from a physician. The physician is defined by someone that's licensed in the state of Michigan as an MD or DO. So if a physician has recommended cannabis and the state's accepted that recommendation and sent a card back, it means that Lara, in overseeing their license, says they're in good standing. Their activities as a licensed doctor are not in question. And if they were to do so, recommend medical cannabis to a patient of theirs who happens to be a nurse, and also her license, his license, their licenses are overseen by Lara as well, same agency overseeing both of them, and that nurse, it turns out, happens to have, it's learned that he or she's a medical cannabis patient, they will torture that nurse. They will file a complaint against that
for
nurse.
a long time.
And who knew that quote-unquote cannabis dependence with cannabis use disorder, quote-unquote, quote, mild, was a medical diagnosis? Where did this come from? Has anyone heard of cannabis dependence with cannabis use disorder mild? Who knew that this so-called disorder was categorized as mild and what, spicy?
Is that the AMA or is that the DSM
I would prefer
6
mine
or 7?
spicy,
whatever?
please.
Who knew that the state's protocol for this diagnosis mandates that the registered nurse admit to this disorder, sign a contract to complete an unknown length of time and unknown terms of substance abuse treatment
ridiculous.
as a condition to retain your nursing license? Who knew this could be done without any evidence regarding the registered nurse's performance at work? Who knew this could be done with evidence that the registered nurse's performance at work was impeccable? Who knew that the physician contracted with the state, which is the Health Professional Recovery Program, also known as HPRP, and acting on behalf of Lara as a third-party contracted overseer of those that have been diagnosed with substance abuse problems, including mild or spicy cannabis disorders, and then acting on behalf of Lara, that when they regulate these registered nurses, they don't distinguish between active Delta-9 THC or any other cannabinoids, like CBG, CBA, including the metabolite THC, TOOH11, or the carboxy, which is not a controlled substance. All of the above is real, and circumstances that we encountered in this more than year-long battle, which means license and not working during that period of time with the Michigan Licensing Agency. And let me explain how this came about, because when we learned about this, she's not the only person that's been damaged by this, and I don't have to talk about the outrage of the entire process how they do this, but as it relates to cannabis, in medical cannabis in particular, I think it's rather important. Now, this case was filed, I think, in 2018, at the end of 2000. No, it was 19. It was 19 when the complaint was filed, because we're at a year in like July, August, or June. So we know what office was handling it during this period of time, and what had happened is that there was as it goes, there was an incident at the house that resulted in no action, no crimes, nothing, and out of that incident, there was some references that the person was using medical cannabis. And because of this, literally an anonymous tip, hey, nursing board, this person is using cannabis. Nursing board, no name, no idea. So you, nurse, now you have to go to our group of doctors that we've contracted with, known as HPRP. Now this place is they're earning their money for the recovery world because they got this program where they have you come in, they examine you, they become your independent medical exam, and what's disclosed during this is the doctor is prescribing me, my client had been in a car accident, like a rod in their arm, and problems with their leg, and anyways, they could have been on opiates till the cows came home, and was at some point, and had scaled it back. It was using nominal amounts of like some Norco and some medical cannabis used as a topical. Okay, so she discloses this because she's got a card and a script. They take blood, and the blood comes back, Norco, and carboxy THC, the metabolite, not even, and they find that the registered nurse has a cannabis disorder that's mild. Now, you understand, like, nothing was found illegal in her blood, in her own disclosures. And so they say, these are your options. You can never work again. We're going to take your license. Or you enter into this treatment program, sign these documents, admit your fault. How long is it going to be? They don't tell you. What did I do wrong that makes me do? Where's the finding of? Doesn't matter. Okay, it is literally one of the most.
It's brutal.
And is it they're saying that they're defining abuse or disorder just by it being known that it is being used. Period.
I'm telling you that upon the independent medical examination, which takes place at this HPRP, so they do an intake as if they're, like a history and what are you doing, and we're going to examine you and do a assessment. In the upfront disclosures, it is made known that medical marijuana patient and what prescription medication, which are nominal, you know what I mean, compared to what others for chronic pain are being treated with. And what I'm saying to you is that they then did a blood test, and the blood tests come back with, consistent with the statement that there's some opioid or Norco is being taken, and the inconsistent with the cannabis, medical marijuana cannabis, or medical marijuana use, because there's only carboxy THC. I mean, you can call it consistent, inconsistent, but certainly is not, evidence of it being in their blood at the time they're doing it. If the concern was it's in their blood and they're working or whatever, whatever crazy nonsense that it causes concern for some licensed nurse to be to potentially lose their license. It was not evident in any of this independent medical exam, and despite all of that, they still required. The only option was to either fight the case or
do their
obey
program
and submit to this program. Now, Jeff Frazier, who was instrumental in helping drive back on this, we uncovered, and Jeff, jump in if you want, this health professional recovery program. We're going to post some information about it, and I hope whoever's listening spreads the word to whatever other nurses or professionals to be aware of these issues. I don't think, it's not something that's happening, at least yet, where they're checking your blood and you're dropping for no reason just because you have a license. That's not yet a thing that's taking place. But this came about in such a random way without any culpability, just an anonymous call that people need to be aware and alert of it. But we learned that so there's a class action lawsuit that had been filed. I don't know if the class was retained, but there's at least, meaning they filed a lawsuit and tried to join a group of people that were all similarly situated to fill this class that they could move forward on. The certification for the class was, I think, denied, but individual plaintiffs still remain. Okay, Jeff, something like that, right? And the issue was, for example, same kind of situation you have where a nurse randomly was told to, she's doing drugs or whatever, and they sent her to do a drug test negative for everything. Nothing in her in this nurse's blood. They said, here's your choices. Sign up for our program. Admit that you have a substance abuse. She's like, what, are you kidding me? There's nothing in my right? So, I mean, so she hasn't worked in 8 years. This lawsuit's been going on for 8 years. I'm just telling you how crazy and what we got dragged into and this insanity that's going on. So
that would be the state attorney general's office fighting this thing for 8 years? Is that it?
They inherited the case probably from Bill Schuette, but the point is here that, every step of the way I was met with opposition. So obviously my client did not obey and submit. So we fought it, and they're running through a whole gamut of procedures and conferences and blah, blah, and this and that. And, got to meet with this one. They got someone from the nursing board. We've been on the first one on the phone with, like, the first round of agents. They're like, well, this is what you can do, and we're going to do this. And I think even at one point we, just to somewhat not be denied or, like default, the client did a second independent medical exam, same kind of result, same nonsense. They just looked at the first one, did a second. Like no one's thinking. It's really rather bizarre, and there's been no change of thought in any way, shape, or form in this professional institution licensing agency's mind. That's what was so shocking to me. You know what I mean? There's been no change of heart, and there's a conceptually, and I've dealt with this with physicians. I've represented physicians who've been. They've been arrested marijuana driving or something like that, and how does the licensing board deal with that? So, but the point I'm trying to make is that in these worlds, it's still considered Schedule 1. Like they're not thinking of it any differently, and the use of it medically, especially, not thought of any differently, and if at all, like alcohol, even medically. You know what I mean? Like as if there's a correlation there, and of course that whole discussion about maybe thinking about it differently is because now it's recreational. We have to start thinking about it like alcohol. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Totally glossing over the general principles of medical cannabis, and one of many ignored social justice issues that still exist. And this is going to be a real problem unless there's some change and attention drawn to it. So the first round we dealt with not a lawyer but some other agent, and they couldn't really do anything. I mean, there's even the, I had to tell them about the case, Alan, which is stare decisis. What's the case that said that, carboxy THC is not... Feasel, right. So I had to tell them about that. I give them a site so they go look it up. Anyway, so then I get the second round. We got the AG on the other side. It's got a bow tie and he's doing his thing and he's got, trying to be friendly and polite, but they don't, they don't care. They don't care. They're just running their gamut on us. So, but we're not backing down. So we end up in some conference room up in Lansing with someone from the nursing board, one of the representatives, and we sit and walk this thing through. And it's one of these kind of like, hey, just let's talk about everything and figure it all out, and nothing can be used later, which is the protocol. Nothing's recorded or whatnot. But at that time, it was probably, I don't know, end of last year, and then, however long with the lockdown, and from everyone's office, they finally get back to it, and we weren't going anywhere, and ultimately what they did is they just capitulated at the end of the day. I mean, the number one is like, what is she doing wrong? The same doctor that you guys licensed and didn't do anything. How could she be in trouble if she's doing what he said to do? And you're giving license to both. I mean, that's not that shouldn't follow that way. But this is so crazy that she did nothing wrong. I mean, how can...
It's the same concept as if she were to be getting in trouble for taking her Norco, which was prescribed, which was something that she,
Correct.
It's the same exact thing.
I mean, what also was interesting, I'll tell you what else it was, because it would seem as if you are in the health profession, and I really think this, what they're really getting is if you're on prescription medications or needing to take them at all, you bring a vulnerability of risk to the hospital setting or being around patient setting because, see what I'm saying? I think that's kind of the connection. And, they don't trust a nurse registered with the state who is prescribed Seriously, like, you know, and especially if you got cannabis in there as well. Even though there's, you know, I mean, we showed up with like 10 letters from, you know, did private insurance nursing, and, you know, visited homes and stuff like that. You know how important those are, that part of the, and especially she wasn't able to work during this entire lockdown.
Ridiculous state of affairs, really.
But
and she sued Laura. Is that what has happened?
No, I mean, not yet.
Oh.
But what I'm saying is they ultimately dismissed the case, and it goes something like this. Here, this is what they came up with.
Why? I don't.
The Attorney General's office requested the administrative complaint filed on this date, July 2019, be dismissed. The underlying allegations of this case that a respondent occasionally uses topical marijuana cream to treat serious joint injuries sustained in a motor vehicle accident, and that has done so pursuant to medical marijuana card issued by primary care physician of 15 years standing. As a result, she referred to HPRP by an anonymous informant, and she declined to enter a monitoring agreement with HPRP. There is no evidence that respondent's occasional use of topical cream makes her unsafe to practice, or that she meets the requirement for having a diagnosis that qualifies her for monitored HPRP. Rather, the evidence reflects that there are contrary statements from her primary care physician and from her longtime home healthcare employer that do not support an impairment diagnosis. Moreover, the fact that the sole witness is anonymous, therefore unavailable to testify, would make any violations of the Public Health Code impossible to prove. The undersigned Attorney General and board conferee therefore request that this case be dismissed. So, do you understand, this is a year later, and they did this despite the fact that she told everybody. Like, where did I get this from? She told me, but I looked at the IME report, which says all this. A brain should see that doesn't make any sense. You know, where's the culpability? Anyways, it's a terrible, terrible issue. We won. It was a great victory. They're not used to losing these, I'll tell you that. They get a lot of business into that HPRP program, and it's like a lot of the other.
Wonder who invests in that, has investment in that program, Michael, Jim.
Well, if it was an administrative hearing you won, I mean, they obviously agreed with you. Like you said, that you don't usually win at those.
You don't. You have an administrative hearing, and
that administrative judge probably rubber stamps them 98%.
Well, I'll tell you something.
Exactly.
I'll tell you something. I had another situation which would sound like you've no chance at all, but I had this really amazing client who was had a very important job at a university that taught medicine, and he oversaw a program of students, you know, that saw patients, and he had an, you know, he got so it was just he's a fascinating guy, and he literally used cannabis medically, like as part of his whole life, you know, and he had a regiment, you know, even when it was, and you know, he got on the stand and explained they couldn't do, you know, like they couldn't do anything, like it was, but they never thought this, you know, they ended up giving him his license back in. He was arrested for like a drunk, you know, like a driving while impaired, smelled like marijuana, get the marijuana in the car. He didn't report. He didn't know he had to report. They didn't report lying, you know, dangerous drugs, blah blah. You know, you can't have your license.
Pile it up.
But once you heard from him, you know, and his medical use and how he, you know, because you don't get to that point by being a fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, he's been working his ass off. This is literally medicine for his well-diagnosed issues that he had. And, you know, he rocked it, you know, and he could point out the path of how he got there as a medicinal asset to him. And that was, so we prevailed on that one. That was another that went to hearing. This one was, it's a great victory, but it shouldn't have gotten here. It should have been a year, you know. I mean, I think of the patients that lost out that didn't have this registered nurse, and her not working for a year was terrible.
Yeah,
you know,
awful.
And I don't know if anything's changed. There should be an announcement. We're firing, getting rid of HPRP, or we've instructed them specifically to no longer have within their menu of diagnosis.
It's not just HPRP. All of those professional licenses are at risk. I mean, that's the standard operating procedure. If you drop dirty, you go to rehab if you want to keep your license. And if you don't go to rehab, you don't get to keep your license.
Rehab, that's only 5% success rate, Jim.
Yeah.
I didn't go to rehab. Guess how many years sober I am, Jim?
How many, Steve?
4.
All right.
I'm more successful than the inpatient programs.
There's no success possible if somebody's concluded to have a disorder just from
that
knowing that they use it, and then have to. I mean, it's just absurd all the way around.
Yes, completely. And Michael and I were discussing earlier the fact that just in our society in general, everybody wants to go after everybody's job. Like, why does everybody want to attack other people's livelihoods? That's what this is. This woman is a good lady, good nurse.
Leave her alone.
You know, she's just wanting to go do her job. She loves her job and is good at it. And they want to rip it from her for the past year or so because she uses a medical marijuana topical. That
racket,
is
right?
insanity.
It's a racket, and it's a racket that existed when it was a dangerous Schedule I drug, okay? But it's, one, used medically here, and they don't recognize it anywhere within their own medical, dictionary or, whatever the reference books are. And nothing had been done proactively, this is the most important point, to address that treatment as a Schedule I drug now that it is legal. Shouldn't our championed administration be looking at things like this? Isn't this one of the things that we would have expected would not be a problem? Or being given the solution where they wouldn't even have to go to every single agency and figure out what the problems exist because of medical cannabis, because all you had to do was not oppose the Board of Pharmacy lawsuit, which would have unscheduled this and it made it all stop on its own. But no! Who was that, Steve Martin? That's Steve Martin.
This is a great segue into the Sinclair case. But before we get to the Sinclair case, let me just say another brief story on what happened with that nurse. I had a friend I went to law school with, very brilliant person, and when he applied for the bar exam, he had a drunk driving conviction. So they called him in for a drug test, and random drug test without warning, and he tested positive for carboxy THC. And they held up his clearance for the bar because of that, and he's never been admitted. It's been 30 years.
Carboxy, you say?
Yeah, they wouldn't admit him back then.
Even though the Michigan Supreme Court has now deemed it.
This is 1988, and FISA wasn't until 1999.
I know. It just shows how wrong they were. There's prosecutors. There is a prosecutor who's been quoted saying, "In the good old days, we used to convict people for driving with just carboxy THC in their system. Now it's really hard to do that. Now it's hard to do that. You actually got to prove that it was active at the time, and now you got to prove that they were impaired. This is
and
crazy.
If you're not happy with it, you're just going to appeal." I mean, this was a conversation Michael had with a prosecutor. It was either earlier this week or last week. I can't remember. This was the conversation. The guy is getting mad because if Michael's not happy with the ruling, he's going to appeal it. Well, isn't that the way the system is set up, for God's sakes?
Yeah, I did.
But the prosecutors are angry with the actual system.
Well, that's too bad.
Well, maybe they're going to have to get rearing up for some trials.
Yeah.
I think every person out there right now should fight every single case.
Yeah, why not?
And
You're
call
right.
Komorn Law. We can help you with it because we're not afraid to fight.
Yeah.
And
go to trial.
they go to trial. Do not talk to the police, prosecutor, or anybody else, and go to trial.
All right, Alan, do you want to do the presentation of the? Do you want to do the presentation of the John Sinclair matter?
Well,
Yeah.
I think
It is
you know more about it than me. And
It's an appellate update, though.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, we
Da
know
da
Alan.
da 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 da.
I already triggered him. That's like his. That's his. Secret agent code thing that sets him off to give a presentation. What is that? What I'm thinking of? MK Ultra. You know, like the he's a Manchurian candidate. When he hears that noise, he turns into the
Appellate news guy.
Appellate news guy.
All right, this is case
There you
number
go. Didn't take much.
349-288 from the Court of Appeals, and it's an unpublished decision dated today. The name of the case is John Sinclair, Josie Scogan, Christian Bogner, Paul Littler, Normal of Michigan, and the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association versus the Board of Pharmacy and Nicole Cover. And what this case was about, as Michael already alluded to in his comments, was that currently marijuana is listed as a Schedule I controlled substance, which means it has no medical use, and there's a limited listing in Schedule II for medical use. And this case sought to remove those classifications and sue the Board of Pharmacy to remove marijuana from the scheduling because those classifications are dishonest and illegal. Schedule I says it has no medical use, and we know, in fact, that it does have many acceptable medical uses, and they've been recognized in the Medical Marijuana Act, and we have approximately 300,000 people in Michigan who have medical marijuana cards for those medical uses. So that's dishonest. And the Attorney General fought this case, moved to have it dismissed on bullshit grounds, claiming, for example, that there was no injury complained of in this case. Well, we know how many people have been injured by these classifications. The courts used to spend 40% of their time on marijuana cases. So to say there's no injury from these criminal classifications is just completely dishonest by the court and doesn't even recognize their own long list of decisions. And the rest of this decision is similar bullshit, Michael. It's intellectual bankruptcy. That's all I have to say about it. I'm sorry.
I agree. Because it's another lawyer said like they were kind of ripping on, they take the case and the sum of the it's like reading one of these opinions that doesn't get to the point ever. It's just kind of like, this is what this case is about, and these are the laws that are implicated, but this is what happened, this is an appeal, and these are the reasons why they appealed, and despite all these reasons of why they're filing this fucking law in the first place and getting to the sum and substance of whether there's a rational basis to even, accept the idea that cannabis is, Schedule I, or scheduled at all when it's recreational, we're going to try to find any possible thing that we can say to undo the reason why it's here. It's like they said, oh, how bad could this be? How convincing? We're going to take this case, and they start reading like, shit, he's right. So we're going to backtrack. Okay, when he appealed from the Court of Claims, the Court of Claims said no standing and no real victim or, no damage, etc. So we're going to avoid the substantive issues and just rail on that some more, okay? Yep. So that's essentially the gist of it. I will say there's a couple interesting highlights. One is that they start out with, to fully understand the world of Komorn. No, to fully understand plaintiff's position, we must find it helpful to underscore the recently enacted marijuana-related laws in Michigan. And they go through each of them, the MMA, and its most famous quote, which is, the MMA did not, however, create a general right for individuals to use and possess marijuana in Michigan. Consequently, the felony punishments, still remain. They go on to discuss the Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, providing protection for those granted a license and engaging with activities within the scope of the MMFLA. Interesting language. As I think about another case that I have. Under the Act, licensed provisioning centers are authorized to purchase safety-tested marijuana only from licensed growers and processors and are authorized to sell it in limited quantities to patients and caregivers who are registered on the MMA. Finally, they include this. Finally, in the third most recent act at issue is the Michigan Regulating Tax of Marijuana Act, which generally decriminalizes the possession and use of marijuana. It's always interesting to see when we start getting some discussions of the Court of Appeals about, Alan, this is the official, even though there was another case that we said that, what was that, Aaron Cooper, something like Aaron, what's his name? I don't know. The one out of Ross Commons.
Clark.
What?
Clark.
Wasn't
right.
it
Clark?
That was mentioned a little Mertma there. But this one they actually speak about it and say what it is here, right? Which generally decriminalizes the possession and use. Mertma expresses its purpose as follows, and they cite the first paragraph of it. To that end, the Act goes on to identify a list of acts with respect to marijuana, possessing, consuming, purchasing, transporting, possessing, storing, manufacturing, so on, that are now permissible in Michigan under certain circumstances. There's some bad language. There's some bad shits associated with that, Alan. Let's just be honest. They take a swing at that like they were not ready to say, oh, yeah, it's legal. There's a lot of decriminalize.
They said the same
We
thing
got to
about
do a
the
lot
act.
more research.
They said the same thing about the act. It's
I'm saying
limited
to that
number.
end, the act goes on to have a list of acts with respect to marijuana, blah, 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 and so on, that are now permissible, not in Michigan under, quote unquote, certain circumstances. You understand what I'm saying? So, we raised the issue, which I thought, was important here about there's multiple reasons why the current existing state, and it affects every single citizen. If it's still Schedule 1, theoretically...
Michael, if I could just...
Go ahead.
Let me backtrack for one thing. You're right. If it's Schedule 1, then MRTMA doesn't make sense letting anyone over 21 use it. But MRTMA has actually been cited by the Court of Appeals in 4 opinions. 3 of them are from Komorn Law. Darling, Clark, and now this Sinclair opinion. Just a little bit of trivia.
That's good. That's good. And it was interesting because when you originally filed this lawsuit, MRTMA had not passed. I mean, the election hadn't happened. And this appeal, we included this into because of the...
It didn't make any sense before MRTMA.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense now.
I think we could have, would have, should have won on MRTMA alone because they're giving licenses to folks that
I'd like to hear from Dana on the topic. I really would.
Well, we just got to give her a list of questions.
Well, let's send her a list.
We're tallying them up.
Let's send her a list.
We're going to tally them up.
They'll be fair questions, right? I don't think there's anything
straight
wrong.
Up
that was
questions.
The position in the legal pleadings, so
yeah.
I think we just need some clarification.
We do,
Maybe
absolutely.
she has a good reason.
Maybe, Jim.
Maybe.
We'll only know when we talk to her, if and when.
Yeah.
But other than that, we got to take this as her opinion on things, right?
Yeah.
We don't have anything else to base it on.
This was her office that fought this case, tooth and nail.
We should do a mandamus to the federal courts, Jeff, and because they've really, part of our, we have a number of interesting positions, I think, that are all valid. Number one is everyone's Fourth Amendment rights are at issue. If it's Schedule 1, then kick in your door. The federal government's already, removed it from the controlled substances. It defaults to is outside of that in the FDA. That in and of itself should end it. But with that being said, as it stands, it's not just the Fourth Amendment. It also includes cruel and unusual punishments, right? Because we're all subject to that kind of outrageous kicking in the door punishment. Fourth Amendment rights implicated. All the shit that would go along with that. The Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment right. These are real.
Second Amendment.
Also, at some point in time, we bring up here that Lara and the Board of Pharmacy modified and republished its rules to include gabapentin as a Schedule 5 controlled substance, leaving marijuana Schedule 1. And our position was that the classification of marijuana as Schedule 1.
I know. I was on gabapentin.
That is
controlled
a horrible
substance. Violated Michigan's due process and equal protection laws. It's arbitrary and capricious, and it leads to cruel and unusual punishment. If ever prosecuted, gave the impression that marijuana is a harmful drug, was unsupported and violated various legal rules, it was in violation of defendants' clear legal duty. This is our position. They're saying that we lost on. To deschedule. There's a legal duty. I mean, unless you are buying into. There's a legal duty that's being that's really.
They're licensing people to sell it medically.
We need a mandamus to the federal court to someone to come in and force this to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen.
It should be a phone call.
We need a higher.
I mean, it should just be a stroke pen at this point.
That's what I'm saying.
Is that what we're doing here? Stroking pens and making things happen?
I mean, they're doing all sorts of shit with executive orders these days.
It's just, somebody has a pen that's on fire.
The headline should read, Attorney General disputes its clear legal duty to unschedule marijuana and take taxable marijuana earnings as donations for her campaign.
Yeah,
oh my.
She certainly did.
Oh my.
No, I'm saying to you that the idea that this would go on, and if one cannabis person that's in the industry would give her $1,
right,
it would be you know, I mean, according
It's
to
drug
logic,
money.
it's drug money.
It's drug money.
Drug money.
Well, she didn't mind coming
According
to our
to the
fundraiser and
to the
collecting all
powers
that
that be.
money.
Right. Right.
Well, here's the thing. The good news is that I don't know if you, we kind of, we're motherfucking relentless, and we're not going to give up because we're going to take
That's
this to the
not
Supreme
what we
Court.
do.
We're going on, and we're going to hope to have other organizations that care like we do about this. Hopefully,
right.
include some amicus briefs.
I'll write you an amicus brief.
I thought Alan was supposed to be writing some kind of amicus. Was that about something else?
Alan is writing the amicus brief on behalf of the Democratic Cannabis Caucus.
There
Jamie
we go.
Pro bono.
Boom, boom, boom.
Has that been
Pro
organized?
bono.
Pro bono.
How does that feel, Alan? Stick it right to you. Pro bono. Look at his mouth.
It's funny.
Nah, he's retired. He's got nothing else to do.
I thought part of the deal was he actually was going to pay into the new PAC for the privilege.
Well, yeah, he could probably donate a couple G's, and then he could donate a couple, about 80 hours of his time.
Right.
Here you go.
And that
Makes
sounds
sense.
like
That's more like the discussion than I remember. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Alan?
I think
He
that
doesn't think that's
there's
great.
definite evidence. There's definite evidence that cannabis impairs short-term memory, and this is a prime example. But
Good one.
nevertheless,
That's why it's good that we have.
Oh,
we can
yeah.
play it back and even produce a transcript for you.
Yes.
Good point.
Okay,
Good
wonderful.
point.
I think it's a great idea.
Alan, not only that, the Zoom that you record all your Zoom stuff and you produce a transcript because you're Zoom crazy, right?
Do you?
No, I'm kidding.
Do you record your Zooms?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
No. The only Zooms I record are webinars when there's somebody speaking on a topic to a group.
Yeah, those are. I attended one, the Last Prisoner Project, 2 of them actually.
Here's an important point analysis. Plaintiffs have made it clear that their goal in this lawsuit is to obtain an order compelling the Board of Pharmacy to deschedule marijuana as a Schedule 1.
No shit.
Or any other schedule.
Glad that was clear.
Controlled substances. Here you go. Now listen. Even if that effort has merit in a policy sense,
Even if.
we are nevertheless compelled to affirm the order granting the summary disposition. On appeal, we failed to address the 2 separate grounds. The crux of the allegation complainant involves request for the relief in that we failed to plead the existence of an actual controversy. See what I'm saying? This is some legal, as Alan says, some mental bankruptcy, I guess.
And for the listeners, I think it's
Intellectual
important,
bankruptcy.
Michael.
Yeah,
for you to-
intellectual bankruptcy.
I think it's important for you to tell them what summary disposition is, and why it's complete bullshit that that's how it ended in the Court of Claims to begin with.
That means that the case was dismissed without a trial, that the other side asked the defendants asked the judge to dismiss the case, and the judge granted that motion.
Because we
So there was
failed
never
to
a
state a claim upon which relief could be granted. In other words, our complaint, the allegations set forth of, we've got these laws and people are engaging and everyone's doing it this way, and that's not controlled like we know. Licenses are given to people that have no medical degrees, and now it's recreational, and and all these people are subject to all these penalties. For example, a nurse, and drivers and everybody, CPS and
Any licensed professional, including people in the military too. The military, I thought they had some like permission, I guess, to use CBD, and now they don't.
Well, that
It
is,
also-
I think you're talking about the veterans, and there is also military personnel, and there was an order that came down that they are not to be using CBD or hemp products.
You know why? I'll tell you. Here's the other thing. I'll tell you what else why. Because, there was this, and I'll tell you, as I read from here, the analysis of the MMA as they go through these 3 laws is to remind everybody that the MMA didn't legalize medical marijuana for everybody. Marijuana is still legal. It merely created a small group, protections for a small group of class of people.
Exemption.
Exemption for people that are within, absolute strict compliance. Whatever the fuck that means, judged by the police in the moment, who know nothing and don't even know the law at the moment, and then they forfeit everything. So that's how they treated the MMA. And as this thing rolls out, they have the opportunity here to speak of the other two laws and make reference to them. As I said here, I didn't like some of the language when they talked about the recreational law. And anything that we would be talking about. For example, prosecutors pushing the idea that smoking in public defaults back to the public health code. What about kids under the age of 21? Yeah, right, this voter initiative intending to decriminalize.
Well, it's because they're a one-trick
meant
pony.
to leave the kids under 21 subject to penalties and getting locked up for it. And, like, there's still felonies. Like, that's going to be interpretation. Any of these things would not even be in the purview of conversation. Wouldn't have to happen. It would be no one's choice to say how we're going to punish this Schedule I drug.
Yeah.
If it's unscheduled, it doesn't matter.
Right.
They'll have to make some new laws to regulate it as some kind of penalties as
can't
so
have that.
what it does is it is the intention of the people.
Yeah.
It's the intention of the people. It's the only thing that makes sense. It can't be regulated as a recreational substance and still be a controlled substance. And if that's not in the standard, Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, is no rational basis, arbitrary and capricious. And that's what this is. These things are intellectually dishonest.
Terrible.
And I keep asking Jeff. I don't know I like ask a question that I answer for him, which is how I do it sometimes. But Jeff, jump in. Give me your. Get in here.
I just have to agree with Alan. It's intellectually bankrupt. I mean, they took a look at it and tried to untie the knot. I mean, I find it curious that they, on one part, say that the lower court dismissed all claims, but at the same time, seems to say that the Court of Claims didn't even rule on the key issue of whether there was a rational basis for be Schedule I or to be on the controlled substance list at all. So, look, I think from the get-go with this lawsuit, we've known that the only and best forum that we can hope for is Michigan Supreme Court. And so I think that, I mean, this is sausage, but it's not unexpected. And so let's get our application to the Supreme Court and kind of concurrently, I think, start gathering some amicus briefs from all the various organizations that have a dog in this hunt, because that's pretty, like you say, pretty much all of us. The way that they justify so much by the fact that it's Schedule I, not to mention that it's on the controlled substances list at all. So, yeah, hey, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but that was not a particularly edifying opinion. Wasn't much of an effort. So I think that we go to the Supreme.
Just more shit winds coming out of Lansing, Jim.
It's actually very, very distressing.
You know what we should ask about this? Is Pete Lucida.
Yeah, I wonder what he says. That's good.
Especially he's running for prosecutor of Macomb County. It'd be interesting.
Former defense lawyer and also the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah.
Jeff, I liked your point on the error of the reasoning of the Court of Appeals and the reliance on an opinion that didn't get to the subject matter, at the Court of Claims as a basis of error. We should mark that, and when we start drafting our questions for the Supreme Court, we should consider that. Who's here, a lawyer that's listening to me? Anybody? Just kidding.
I'm not.
Shit winds still a-blowing.
Alan, did you get that? We'll figure that out later. All right, so it's a shame, but we'll keep fighting on. That's all we can do, right?
That's it.
All right. So we covered those two things a little bit. I think we should take a break. Are we in break zone here?
Yeah,
We
break
could
zone.
I didn't see any signaling from you.
Come on, Jim.
That's because we're time.
Dirty Dan.
Dirty Dan's supposed to be on
Dirty
trigger
Dan's
tonight.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll talk less, and we'll let everybody else talk a little bit. Okay?
All right.
We'll take it.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2020 Digital Hash Bash broadcast, hosted by Jamie Lowell. Jamie, you're out there, aren't you?
I'm here, hosted by all of us. I'm not taking the credit, that's for sure.
Nope. A whole big gang of us. I'd like to introduce our next guest speaker here. BDT Smoke Shop opened in 1973. They're the #1 head shop in the Southeast Michigan for more than a dozen years. This gentleman is the face of BDT Smoke Shop, but he's so much more, and I hope he gets a chance to explain that. Let me introduce Mr. Curtis Gore.
I hear a bit of an echo.
Hey, Curtis.
Locked up.
My intro was so good, he didn't feel the need to stay around to say anything. Awesome!
No, unfortunately, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can, Curtis. Yay! Thank you.
Oh, boy. Poor internet
There he
connection, I
is.
think.
All right.
Just as we thought things were going well.
You're doing great. We can see you and hear.
I could hear the intro.
We can hear you and see you. Keep going.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to be on our first ever virtual Hash Bash over Skype. This has been fantastic. I think it's time to have a little fun. Can you still see me?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
We got something big going on in the background here. Kind of chilling things out here at the Hazel Park BDTs. Well, it's obviously been a tough time for all of us. But we're going to do our best getting through.
You know, Curtis, it's difficult to know what is an essential service and what isn't. How's BDTs doing with this whole situation? Are you an essential service? Are you able to service customers?
No, we are, all our stores are shut down right now. But fortunately, with our gas and chemical company, Bumblebee Gas and Extraction, we've been actually servicing the community by providing isopropyl alcohol and non-denatured alcohol and actually turning that into a sanitizer. And we're still
so awesome.
Curtis, we may have lost you. That's a shame. If you notice Curtis's background, those of us who can still see him on his frame, he's at the Marijuana Museum, which is existing in Hazel Park. Jamie Lowell's been there before. That happens to be a great rack of magazines and other memorabilia, not just from Cheech and Chong, but other remnants of the era. It's quite an impressive place, Jamie.
Yeah, we did a Jazz Cabbage Cafe broadcast from there.
Sure did.
Helped to show it off and had a really great lineup of people there participating.
Yeah. That hat he was wearing itself deserves a story. That was pretty awesome. And a fog machine for the Hash Bash show? That's great.
And now I'm back on it. What's in the face of injustice, we stand proud and tall. Police misconduct drives us up the wall. We come in all shapes and sizes, fighting to be free. Jack-booted thuggery serves to charge our battery. We are the dildos for justice, and we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling cause you smoked a little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass. We do all the hard work at attention all the time. We may be rigid, but our justice is sublime. We vibrate with intensity, electric in our cause. When the cops don't have a warrant and they violate our laws, we are the dildos for justice, then we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling cause you smoked a little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass.
Nice.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law to provide clients with results. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Komorn with
Is there an ashtray over there, Michael? Just the talking heads. I don't know which way it's going. So we're gonna go left. When in doubt, you just go left. You know what? You know the one.
Hello, I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and I am kicking it at Komorn's office in conjunction with Planet Green Tree. Hello, I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and I am kicking it at Komorn's office in conjunction with Planet Green Trees. And today we're going to be talking about how cannabis affects your sleep. Yes, believe it or not, over 75% of cannabis users use cannabis for sleep. And we want to know how and why does cannabis either help you or keep you up at night. And we're going to get into cannabinoids. Cannabinoids, there are three major cannabinoids that have been therapeutically talked about and tossed around right now that helps you sleep. You have THC, you have CBD, and CBN. Now, those are three of hundreds of different cannabinoids, and the science is not there yet, and we're still studying it, but we do know there's three main players, THC, CBD, and CBN, that does help you sleep. So if you're looking for cannabis and you're going to one of the licensed stores, and if you're so lucky in your area, there is one there, you want to ask about their cannabinoid profile of how much CBN, how much THC, and how much CBD is in there. Now, the reason why these cannabinoids actually pair with our body and help us sleep is something called the endocannabinoid system. It is one of the many systems in our body. You have your circular vascular system, you have your skeleton system, you have your cardiovascular system, and there's the endocannabinoid system. So your digestive system. So all these different systems help your body function, and so does the endocannabinoid system. It's actually responsible for bringing balance to your body. Almost like a thermostat, where if it's too hot, it kind of kicks on the air. If it's too cold, it kicks on the heat. And sometimes we could be deficient in our cannabinoids, just like we're deficient in like vitamin C or vitamin D. We can actually supplement those deficiencies in our human cannabinoids. We call those endocannabinoids because they're inside of our body, from outside cannabinoids. And some of those outside cannabinoids are from plants. They call those phytocannabinoids. And 3 of those cannabinoids we're talking about is the THC, CBD, and CBN. And they fit like a lock and key with our system, almost as if God intended it to be, right? So a little bit more detail about THC. I know it kind of got a bad rap in the news about it being the psychoactive component of cannabis, but it by itself is really not that effective at all. It has to have an entourage effect. But THC in conjunction with the rest of the plant matter, when it's in high concentration, it does help you sleep. CBD, it really kind of relaxes you. It kind of overall gives you rest. And then CBN, that is more powerful for the sedativeness of the plant matter. So if you consume it, and sometimes you say, "Oh man, I got a couch lock." You kind of don't want to move, or you're kind of just chilling, or you're sleeping for a long time. Usually, it's not because it's THC or CBD. It's really high in CBN. So those are 3 key cannabinoids that you want to pay attention to. And because the plant is so wonderful, it doesn't have just cannabinoids; it has terpenes as well, and it also has flavonoids. But there's cannabinoids. Don't want to get too confusing here. There's cannabinoids, there's terpenes, and there's flavonoids. And there's hundreds of each of those. And depending on all the combination of all that, it gives you a different effect. But there's 3 terpenes I want to highlight. So we talked about the cannabinoids, and also in conjunction with terpenes. And terpenes I want to talk about is myrcene, caryophyllene, and linalool. Those 3 terpenes are also responsible for helping you relax. A lot of those terpenes, myrcene, caryophyllene, and linalool, can be found in a lot of purple strands, things that smell like a granddaddy purple or like a grape babe. Usually when you smell those, it has like a lavender purple hue to it, as if purple has a scent to it, but you kind of get the hint to like a grape purple smell to it. And then also with caryophyllene, it's a little bit more piney. That kind of reminds me of like Northern Lights. It's real piney. Those, or even some of the kushes or some of the cookies can have that kind of scent to it. So your nose can tell you also, you don't have to necessarily depend on a lab test, but the cannabinoids, you can trust your instincts, trust your senses, and they can also tell you if it's good for sleep as well. So things that have like a lavender smell to it, more of like a grape purple hue to it, or smell to it, and even piney, those can tell you signals that is good for sleep. And it can be a nice nightcap for you as well. Again, I am Earl from the Cannabis Therapy Network. Check out our podcast at Cannabis Therapy Network on YouTube for more information. And also, we're kicking it with Komorn at Komorn's office.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
And with us,
Dirty Dan and his
Dirty
this is Planet Green Trees. So, first of all, one of the topics that dropped out of the last short period of time, or we realized was
YouTube.
Not a lot of news on this lately. It's almost gotten beyond frustrating. But I haven't refused to talk about it, except for right now. The federal cannabis and the no, that's not it. No. The federal government has recently submitted to via the DEA to the White House the temporary rules for CBD. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because that
right?
needs rules.
Well, they're going to, and that's what's happening. Jeff, I sent that to you. Did you get a chance to look at it? It's not compelling, but we've been waiting for the time for things to develop here with the government's promise. There's a period of time, like, hey, when are they going to do something? When are they going to be providing some rules and guidance for folks that want to get involved with cannabis or hemp development and whatnot? Jeff, any thoughts on that? Did you see that article?
Yeah, I glanced through it. I mean, the problem is that, the way that the interim rules are written, the term DEA comes up in there 47 times, and theoretically they've dropped some of their requirements about all testing for hemp products being done by DEA-approved laboratories, hooray. But they're going to still hopelessly complicate this process. They don't want to turn loose CBD. They don't want to admit that it's food and it's been in human diet for 10,000 years. My recommendation for people that are interested in getting in that business is call it hemp. Don't market it as CBD. Market things as hemp. And don't make any claims. Even though there's been recently, I've seen some encouraging research that shows it's long been known the effect of both CBD and THC and full spectrum and terpenes, for that matter, to help with inflammation. And inflammation has become such a big part of this COVID crisis that there's been some good research done, actually about perhaps even prophylactic of benefits of hemp and all cannabinoids in
Say it.
What?
Say it.
Marijuana. Yes.
No, I'm saying it serves in lieu of a vaccination. Say it. I know you're going there.
Cannabis may have some preventative effect on getting coronavirus.
That's what we're talking about. Is that
well,
true?
And it certainly
It's executive order to make everybody use cannabis.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. You know that in Paraguay, there's a law that requires the government to provide cannabis oil to every citizen for their health. And they make no distinction between seed oil and flower oil.
I load up on it every day.
That's funny.
I am not getting this coronavirus.
So here's the story. The Food and Drug Administration has submitted the draft CBD enforcement guidelines to the White House Office of Management and Budget for review. The contents or even basic scope of the document, entitled Cannabidiol Enforcement Policy, Draft Guidance for Industry, are not yet publicly known.
Wait a minute. The first thing he said wrong there, that's totally wrong with this, is enforcement policy.
Right.
Why are they discussing enforcement and putting it on?
The agency, despite the fact, so you got to understand, this is another one of these like kind of government at its best, ignoring, the law. The agency had to be mandated under the appropriations legislation passed late last year to provide an update on its regulatory approach to CBD. You know why? Because they kept saying, it's coming along. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll deal with
and
it.
it did so in March. The update said the FDA is currently evaluating issues of risk-based enforcement policy that would provide greater
Risk. Why
transparency
is the word risk in any of this?
and clarity regarding factors FDA intends to take into account in prioritizing enforcement decisions.
Why is the DEA in charge of this?
Right.
It's FDA.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's that story.
Enforcement on CBD, Jim. It's coming. You all thought it was legal.
Not anymore.
No.
All right. How about this? This is more of a
Parades
topic. We
will
can all have an
start.
opinion on this, and you don't have to identify your source, but it's been announced as of today via the Grand Rapids, Michigan Wood News Cannabis News Group, that the recreational marijuana is starting to be introduced locally, and the industry is becoming more of an influence in the state economy, according to the state's marijuana regulatory agency, which shows that prices are falling while sales are on the rise. Is that true? Who can attest to this? Jamie Lowe, what do you know about the economy of marijuana cannabis these days in the state of Michigan? Are prices coming down from what they once were? And how would you describe that from a consumer's perspective in terms of pricing and quality? Try to be objective and not so promotional about your place.
Well, I mean, okay, there's a lot of dynamics going on, and it's not really seasoned yet. Not everybody is producing who's licensed, and it's to, make these kind of determinations like, hey, everything's, kind of working out, the price is coming down. I'm sure there is enough activity to start recognizing it and that kind of stuff, but in some cases prices get better, in some cases they get worse, and that changes fast. So that's, it's true, but it's also not, it's also, a little deceptive.
Well, let's step it back a little bit, because I mean, we can all agree that it doesn't, I don't think there's much of a dispute, but the rollout of the intended economy of cannabis in the state of Michigan has been thwarted by many factors, and we could list them all. And along the way, who knew it? They relied on the caregivers to be part of the system. And the caregivers, of course, were always the source for patients. But they built this new source of production for this marketplace, and it hasn't really been producing as it was thought to, or along the lines of the demand that exists throughout the state for both, not just patients, which was 350,000, but now the recreational market and the demand that's being brought there. So it's a very interesting dynamic. I think, there was obviously, I think there was, Jamie, you can, tell me your thoughts on this, but there was a shortage of production. There was a need for caregivers to be able to supplement the market. And for quite a while, even some of the licensed growers would even utilize the opportunity to buy and flip, cannabis from caregivers as a method of, instead of growing, and the cost and overhead.
Up till recently, that was accepted by the MRA.
It still is directly caregivers to growers to flower, but not to processors. But I mean, there's a dynamic there, which is that, we don't need you caregivers. We're creating our own system. Whoops, can you help supply us for the next?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting when September 30th rolls around, because there's a lot of concern over supply, especially with the MRTMA in particular, and it'll be interesting to see if the state continues contributions from caregivers at that time, if there's a need for supply still.
It's funny
when the question is whether supply meets demand, whether or not they can keep up with it. In Oregon, the supply well exceeded demand, and it caused the wholesale price of a pound to plummet. And it was originally 3-4 years ago, it was around 4,000, and then it fell down to below 1,000.
That reminds me to remind our listeners and viewers to watch the D'Angelo interview, where he discusses that factor and the surplus of cannabis that is floating around the northwestern part of the country, specifically Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, and how they badly want to get into some kind of interstate compact with Michigan and supply this marketplace, because this is what happens. I think the rollout, as Michigan is seeing it, is probably not much different than it happens in other states. There's always going to be, but it's always a variation of degrees. But what's also interesting is that unique to Michigan is that they let the temporary places stay open, which would never happen anywhere else. Like, that's unique. And then they had to find a source to supply them and utilize what was their illegal, what they were calling illegal before. That is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, all the other states, if they're going to give a license, it'll be okay. You got to, Colorado, you had to grow, process, and have, out of the gate. Yeah. And the other states, if you're going to have a license, it's got to be a grower. You can't open until you're buying within the system. And we had all this kind of very strange. It kind of, what it does?
Geniuses figure.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It exemplifies the, the total the total, the attempt to just completely alter the method and protocols in which patients were getting cannabis, by way of state demand, like screw the voters' initiative of, MMA. We're just going to do it this way instead of. But anyways, I digress. So let's get back to this topic of supply and demand and some of the shortcomings. As we know, there's not a lot of cities that have opted in for both medical and recreational. Even fewer of those that have for medical, fewer for recreational.
Well, you already talked about the trend, right?
Well, I want to hear it from everybody else. Amanda may be able to attest to her perspective on quality and or different forms and possibly even prices and selection in the areas.
As far as
cannabis and I'm saying at the licensed facilities, the dispensaries, what are you finding to be, if at all, the quality, price, and total overall experience?
Well, since COVID, a lot of places are doing the curbside, so it's a little difficult to really get a full grasp. But when I was before COVID, the pricing is going up. The pricing went up a little bit. I don't go to an overwhelming amount of dispensaries, but I do go from here and there, and there's still quality product out there, but it's just the I don't know. I think that the packaging has been worked on quite a bit and I think that's just Jamie. Maybe you can also attest to the packaging that has been stepped up quite a few notches since the beginning of all this. So, the licensed folks are certainly coming out with strong marketing.
We're far away from mason jars with permanent marker on them.
Yes, but and I'm a sucker for marketing. I like packaging.
It's tried and true.
Good old mason
tried
jar.
and true.
But, at the same time, if you're going to have a fancy package, you better have something fancy on the inside, and especially if I'm paying a pretty penny for it. So I personally like my marijuana to burn and not just, go out after you take a puff or something like that, which has been an experience a time or two, which is typically just, not
bad
flushing.
curing.
It's not dry.
There's something wrong with it. Sometimes it's not dry all the way.
Right.
Sometimes it's just not flushed.
Yeah,
I mean, when you smoke cannabis as much and as long as most of us have, you know what it looks like when there's clean cannabis you're smoking. And I like clean cannabis.
There's a couple things there. So when you say clean cannabis, are you saying obviously this has been tested by the states?
Yeah, but you know what I say with that, Michael? I'm really, and I'm going to sound like sour grapes probably, and I'm just going to put that out there initially, but I do not trust. Okay, so you get these cultivation facilities who crank out 500 plants, 1,000 plants, 1,500, whatever it happens to be. So these guys, I don't know. I'm not going to gross generalize, but for a lot of them, they have not been exposed to managing gardens at that size. So it's very difficult. What you end up with sometimes are bugs. You end up with mildew. You end up with crappy harvest. But for the ones that are coming up with mold and things like that, these commercial facilities that are licensed by the state, they have this process with a willow box. So it becomes less important to grow clean cannabis, but more important to get rid of it after you've harvested it. So that way you can still sell it in the legal market. It'll still pass because, as Jamie knows, there's remediation. There shouldn't be that. The goal to grow cannabis and consume cannabis, what we've all been doing, is to prevent bugs, prevent mold, prevent all of these different things that would be contaminants in our plants. But that's not what's happening on the commercial level. That's being, they're running through their cycles, they're harvesting. If it's a batch with a bunch of mildew, they stuff it in this willow box thing, and I don't know the exact process, but they treat it. Yes, they treat it. So
it's
you're
like
still.
It's like an ionizer.
Yeah, it's not cool. I don't like it. I think it's cheating.
Is that the same thing they use in Canada, Jamie?
That's they irradiate it in Canada. I think it is different.
Okay.
But I don't claim to know for sure or be an expert on it.
So, but generally speaking, is what's being described here is that at the time of harvest, the plants may not. There's ways for them to post-harvest change the dynamic of the plant and eliminate the things that would be
if it fails
that
for,
they
like,
can't even
a
test
mold
for.
Yeah, if it fails for mold or something like that, there are things it could fail for that this wouldn't help. But
right.
So,
but something right. I understand what you're saying.
But mold,
but
bugs.
and that's not. Well, that's not. That's interesting.
or they could send it to be turned into compost.
Sure. No, I understand that. I understand that. That's the second phase of the remediation. But it has to pass. It has
second
to.
phase. That's
Well,
where
see,
that's the remediation phase where you turn it into
Well,
medicine.
the question is
give up.
The question is that
You
if
just
they
blast
send
it
out a
all.
bunch of batches and they test, mold and I don't know. I mean, I understand what we're talking about. There's some things that are probably could be removed by this ionizing or whatever it may be, but other things, the levels of.
Yeah, but they they should have to disclose it. That's the whole.
The goal of growing cannabis.
Sorry.
The goal of growing cannabis for medicinal purposes is to grow clean cannabis using, or even if you're going to
anybody.
consume it,
right? For
then that
consumption.
means
And if it's
that
not clean,
you're
they
supposed
should
to grow
disclose
it properly.
If they want to sell it, disclose that it's dirty.
Like as an
I think
example,
so,
we were
Jim.
talking about California. Okay, when I was able to visit a few dispensaries out there, one of the things that they do is they have two sections. They've got a section for lab tested, cannabis indoor, and then they have what they call sun-kissed. So if it's outside, chances are good that it's going to have some stuff because it's outside. You can't really get away from all of those outdoor contaminants when the plant's grown outside. But you go in as a consumer and you know that. So you have a choice to choose it. And of course, there are price differences. But when you
Which
say.
is more expensive, the outdoor or the indoor?
Indoor.
Okay. All right. Just for that reason?
I
it's
mean,
more value
California, you get like 3 crops a
It
year.
costs more to
So
produce, and there was a test that said it was clean. The other one was outside.
I understand. That's what I'm saying. So they're selling that as a thing, not knocking the other one, but
No,
they're just
people-
not okay. So
There's nothing wrong with it. That's,
no,
that's
I got
a
it. I
great
got it.
marketplace.
Jamie, what were you going to say about the growing?
I'm
gonna
sorry,
say,
I was getting all worked up.
Some people think that ionizer reduces the essence,
Sure does.
of the bud, and so I don't know if that's true or not, but I have heard that. So
I was livid when I figured out.
Well, I would say this.
I didn't
From
know
the
they were doing
perspective of doing a massive grow, and the idea that it's been suggested that first time through, unless you've got someone that's done it before, they could pull it off. But it's a lot of.
You should probably hire somebody that knows what they're doing.
And that's
But not just you're right. But not just that. But even someone that is a good quality caregiver or even manager of people that you would employ for the execution of what needs to be done there. The scale that you're doing it at is a unique, in most places, and a first time through, there's a lot of, things that could go wrong, right? Arguably, and if it goes wrong for one, it could go wrong all the way. So I could see why to do that, and one of the challenges for all these licensing companies, and we know this because we represent many of them, is not having a major fail, not being in compliance, not, failing on your crop, not having to throw some stuff out and start over after paying people for 3 months.
Everything that's going to eat into the razor-thin margin you're going to make after you deal with the IRS.
Yes.
And the licensing, all that. So those things are those are the keys. So if the question is, am I going to sell some ionized, compromised cannabis, essentially
They're going to say, yeah.
killing
yeah.
its essence, or tossing it because it's not the way cannabis is intended to be grown, it's...
They're not going to do it.
We're in corporate big cannabis.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me quote Mike Colton and say, well, big marijuana is coming. Just kidding.
And it's
Jim.
here. And it's here with willow boxes, ionizers, and all kinds
I'm
of
looking for a reaction
pesticide
from Jamie
treatments.
Lowe. Where is he? Jamie.
If it does kill
Mike
the
Colton,
essence,
quoting
or,
Mike Colton,
or change the experience,
and
the market will speak and the market will change it. I assure you. The market's going to control what's available.
Hold on. So, Jamie,
he
so
began talking about big cannabis,
Right.
and it turned out to, be some level of truth.
Oh yeah. They're trying to. They were trying to sell it anyways into to Canada. So, anyways, the question that we were getting at here is,
whatever happened to those guys, the Prairie Plant Systems?
They're waiting until they make it scheduled too.
Oh, right.
Actually, they sent us a check. They wanted us to see if we'd change our position. Go, no, I'm kidding. Would that be funny? They tried to pay us like, change your position to Schedule 2, Komorn, and we're going to dominate down there.
And we've got a gift card in here for Red Lobster.
We'll have you and
Red Lobster.
Senator Jones on the board. We'll get Jamie Lowell. Listen, so back to the question here. So all the marijuana, some of the marijuana, who knows how much of the marijuana, maybe none. Some of the other products and whatnot may be not passing testing that you would expect at first round, and its essence may have been killed, quoting Jamie Lowell. But at the end of the day, is there still a have they created enough supply where the prices have in fact gone down? Now, what we're talking about here is different scales. Let's say that there's 1, 2, and 3, with 3 being the better quality in scope and cost. What let someone throw out there a number where they paid for an ounce of cannabis at or some kind of product that our listeners who maybe acquired cannabis prior to the days of recreational.
Well, why don't we do one better, and we'll just look it up.
Just
I
bust
saw
out some weed maps.
I saw something the other day that's a place up in Flint was going for $8 a gram. Does that sound about right?
That's a pretty good price. Typically, they're about $10.
Are you talking about a licensed dispensary or just some guy up in Flint?
I don't know. The email I think was on the listserv for the.
Oh, here's
what is that thing we're on? Safer Mish listserv.
Five and dime. They are from the name. It would imply a pretty good price. Five and dime.
So here we've got. Here we have some CBD.
Stephen Bobby's place.
CBD hemp flower.
Ooh.
1/8 ounce is $15. Here we have ChemDog. An eighth is $25. An ounce is $180.
$180 an ounce.
Here we
wow.
have Gorilla Glue number 4. 1 ounce is $250.
Whoa, that must be some primo.
These are, for a dispensary.
It's not bad, actually.
I was hearing like 600.
Yeah, I was thinking I was gonna shoot out like a 400 price
people
range.
Used to say stuff like that because they would add up gram costs instead of like had costs for like higher unit and stuff like that. Does those products that you read off distinguish whether or not they were caregiver products or
is it a licensed place?
They don't. Here we go. Pleasant Trees Farms.
I think that's in Detroit.
Still have caregiver product.
Pleasant Trees is in Harrison Township, aren't they?
Is it?
They're a grow out there.
Try to go House of Dank.
All right, we'll go to the. Yeah, they're licensed.
Okay,
the House
we're taking it to the House of Dank right
to the
now.
House of Dank.
That was a nice place. I went there before dispensaries were actually legal.
Did you?
Yes, and it was a nice place then.
Did they have the House of Dank?
Yeah.
Did they have the trap music going?
Probably.
Yeah, they had the trap music going all the time when I was there. They didn't heed my advice though.
No, they have a lot of traffic coming in and out of there.
Yeah, they do. Holy shit.
Yeah, I used to have to wait there sometimes for a half hour or so.
Yeah, it's
the House of
very
Dank.
busy.
They have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, good selection.
They have the House Shake for $20.
Almost
sweet
too much.
House Shake, $20.
Premium House Shake is $40
for an eighth.
Ooh.
The Rare Dankness. I'm not sure how much that is $3.50 an ounce.
See what I'm saying? $3.50 an ounce for the Rare Dank.
For the Rare Dank. Let's see. Here's the dark.
At the House of Dank.
The dark
Rare
chocolate.
Dank.
I think there'll be the all the taxes and everything.
Maybe it's going to add on top of that 13 percentile.
No, the House
plus
of Dank
the 6,
this
right?
is all medical.
Oh, okay. So we just got a 6% sales tax.
Yeah, Detroit.
Detroit
Okay.
won't do rec.
Oh,
No,
okay.
they put it off.
That was a nice little gift to the Detroit residents.
It's another town where the government makes a whole lot of sense.
Jamie, it's also got to be
Pure Michigan.
It also depends on. Well, first of all, there's no price setting, right? There's nothing that compels one particular place to sell for more or less, right? There's no guideline.
Market factors, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a free market in that regard.
Yeah.
Is this? To the extent that. What you know, you can rely on what you know about places you may be involved with or not involved with, but do you think the pricing across the state is like that? That's a number for medical marijuana patients, but like is it? I don't know that that's the same price that's going for recreational. Number one, and I also don't know if you where you move into areas where it's less populated, and I don't know if that impacts the number of sales that are going on. Maybe certain, modest, more sparsely populated areas still get a lot of business just because the community is, it's a community of cannabis consumers, or they've realized that that's a better choice. Or
what kind of prices are you working with up there in Tawas?
Yeah, well, there's a
look
weed
them up.
maps with the
We're
current
gonna
menu. Yeah,
we're just gonna look you up on weed maps
that's
real quick.
exactly what I was saying. As you do it. I don't get really directly involved with that, but
Yeah.
it depends on like relationships with people and
internal server
and the caregiver thing is an issue and has an effect on cost of products and stuff like that too.
So you're saying source, of course, acquisition cost is going to change the end user pricing, and also
when you see like there's place I think Oz has got a lot of caregiver product in inventory, and
how is that working? Is that just on the rec side then?
No, it's medical side, and then some of it's on the rec side by being seasoned for 30 days and then taken off the shelf and then approved of half of it to be moved over to the MRTMA. I don't know if they've gone through that process, but that's available to them.
So here's something that is not on the list, but I thought it was kind of an interesting topic. But just Tommy laughed at it like, fuck it, we'll just go. All right. So Gage Cannabis, do you guys hear about this? That they've been hit with a proposed class action accusing it of sending unsolicited text messages advertising its products in violation of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act.
Don't be texting. Don't be texting.
Well, so and I understand they've opened a place in Traverse City. I mean, I know they're in Ferndale. Jamie, how many places do they have? Do you know?
I don't, but there must be 5 or 6 or more open right now. And they're shooting for a lot, I think.
And do you know? Well, all right. So what happened here is that this Lenawee County, Michigan resident Dane Thyssen, he's named in the article, complained that over the past year he's received numerous telemarketing text messages from AE Capital LLC doing business as Gage Cannabis. In March, he tried to opt out of receiving the messages by responding "stop," but the company continued to send him automated texts according to the complaint. So this could be a good segue to the...
And now he's suing.
Dispelling the stereotype of lazy stoners. Like, this is like the opposite. Like, this is like intense. Like
he's going for it.
Right, exactly. But...
It's really funny.
So now there's a lawsuit that's going on, and... so hold on, I thought that there might have even been... So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Follow that one up.
Build a wall
And
in one day.
we've got the botanical company up on the weed maps, and
No more robo-texting.
They have the Pineapple Express available.
Oh, I heard that's a good one.
For
They
once
also
for
have
$300.
really awesome loyalty program too, so a lot of people end up getting some
discounts,
pretty good breaks,
some freebies.
like that.
Heck yeah.
They got the white Mo.
The white
I've never heard of
Mo.
that one. That
So
one
I'm
sounds
hearing
fun.
prices between $180 and $350 an
and
ounce.
they've got a couple here for $250.
Is that about the spread?
Yeah.
We're seeing?
There could be a justifiable difference in that cost difference if we saw the products in front of us.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd buy one for $150 from a dispo.
Yeah.
It might be a lot
Would
of
you get the-
stems and
It could be
seeds,
It could be outdoor.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Would you get the
Because that would've been
Kalkushka?
allowed in at one point.
That's-
Yeah, we do get the
I'd
Kalkushka.
probably get the Kalkushka.
That's what I would get.
I would try the local
That's what I would
flavor,
get.
that's
But my
for
deal
sure.
is I got to smell it. And when we're doing curbside, that's a challenge. What do you
That's-
suggest, Jamie Lowell?
Sounds fun.
That Kalkushka is quite good. I do suggest that.
It just
Everything
sounds
they have
fun.
is good.
It does.
And people remember Drew Driver.
Yeah.
He's one of the.
Is he the
farmers we work
Kalkushka
with.
guy?
He's not. That's Tom Beller. I think he's been on the show here before.
Oh, Tom.
Well, you know
was he the guy that made the plants sing?
Oh.
No, that's Tom Wall.
Oh, Tom Wall.
That was
Very cool guy, too.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Tom Beller's from Real Leaf Solutions. It's one of the partners, strategic partners with Ryan with Redemption, too.
Super.
Speaking of Kalkushka, Kalkaska is really one of those towns and areas right now that I'm really rooting for.
Yeah.
That this cannabis industry really helps bring that town back, because that town has been hurting for
It
years.
is, man. There's those development plans there. They're pouring a bunch of money in downtown. The botanical company will be
good.
A store there in the next few months, right downtown.
Hopefully they'll sell the Kalkushka there.
Yeah, do you think you'll have that there?
We will definitely have that.
All
And
right.
next door to us, soon after we open, will be a social lounge. One of
Bring that area back. It's beautiful up there, and it deserves to come back, and cannabis is the thing to do it.
Yeah.
The local leaders there are really happy that this opportunity came along. They've been taking advantage of it for a while.
Well, we've kind of come to the end of the thing, and we can almost be on time, but I don't think we should leave without talking about and relying on the police a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the the facial recognition and the fact.
I just want to.
Yeah.
We can get to that because
it's important.
Yes, but here, this is driving me crazy right here. This is so.
Okay.
So here you go. Detroit, Michigan State. There's the Detroit, Michigan State Police lack policies that could help curb brutality. National advocacy group pushing for 8 use of force policy to curb police violence has found that at least 12 Michigan police departments do not have the standards in place. In partnership with MLive, the 8 Can't Wait campaign reviewed the policies of Michigan State Police Departments in Detroit, Lansing, Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Flint, Kalamazoo, Saginaw, Muskegon, Jackson, and Bay City. They found the group advocates for police departments to, and none of these are not in place, require de-escalation, employee use of force continuum that dictates what levels should be used in each different situation.
Yeah.
Right? So they're saying these things, ban chokeholds and strangleholds.
This is just now coming out for some people?
None of these things are part of the policy of these agencies that we're describing.
That is god-awful.
No,
there
they can-
shouldn't
Here you
be
go.
any
Here you go.
agency operating
Require here you go. Require a verbal warning before potentially deadly force.
Oh,
That's not a policy.
In other words,
you don't have to warn them.
Really?
You just come out
It's in
blazing.
our levels of force. I mean, verbal.
Like bang, 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 bang. Stop or I'm going to shoot.
Your levels of force are,
trying
your
to grab
first
my
thing is officer presence.
Quit resisting.
Just being there.
Here you go. Here's a good one.
Verbal
Here's a good
direction
one.
and control.
Yeah.
Ban.
And then you step up to physical restraint if you have to, and then the fight's on after that.
Ban shooting at moving vehicles, except in cases where the occupants are using deadly force, not including the vehicle. Like, 'cause you know what I mean? Like, yeah, the vehicle is dangerous. It was driving away from me, and it could stop and turn around and come back and run me
It's
over.
so absurd that that there's any police departments out there operating without that policy in specific he just spoke of, which would be in probably the deadly force policy. How has an agency been many been operating without these common sense? I haven't worked at an agency or seen an agency that didn't have any of these.
Canton was not on that list.
No, we've had that on. We've had all of these things.
Here's a good one. Here's a good one. Require the exhausting of all other means before shooting, and knowing what they are. I mean, not to the extent where you're like, okay, check. Oh, I'm going to get shot now. I better, I'm not saying like that, but they have some kind of.
No, the training is so when you get in that circumstance, you can think through it quickly and hopefully make the right decision.
Yeah, so that kicks right in.
Right.
So it's either and when you get into that, then
you get that through training.
Exactly.
Isn't it easier just to shoot something though?
Of course.
Yeah, that's typically the way they do it.
According to Sloppy Joe, you shoot him in the leg. We're going to train him to shoot him in the leg. That's Sloppy Joe's answer.
Shoot him in the leg.
Here's one. Require officers to intervene when fellow officers use excessive force.
That's a biggie.
Oh,
that's a biggie.
like that is going to happen.
Here you go. And the final one is require comprehensive
yes.
reporting of uses of force, including pointing a gun at someone without firing.
Yes. We had to fill out an additional form at Canton PD, a use of force form.
If you
So anytime
pull
you
the gun?
touch,
Right.
if you pulled a gun or anything, you're supposed to fill out that form and go over it with a use of force
I
instructor.
know whenever
and
military
supervisor.
people evaluate the actions of the police, it's common when they say when you pull the gun, it's to use it, and they oftentimes see the police pulling it on people, just holding the gun on people.
Right. They should be writing a report in that circumstances, and I guarantee they're not at least half the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if I told you,
The purpose
you
of
look
the
back
weapon
on
is not to
the
threaten
the
people.
MMMA and the way citizens who could now do behavior today that would be completely legal were having their doors kicked in by masked men in military boots, getting their jollies off.
Oh my.
This would now be appalling. This would be, unwarranted behavior because the state is tax dollar in it and
Come on,
requiring
Michael.
those.
They were just doing their jobs.
Yeah, they had to pull out
Here you go.
four guns with me and my son.
Yeah.
I'm
We
just
look
saying
really
to you,
dangerous.
Threatening.
Yeah.
Detroit met only half of the standards according to the review. Its police department does not require.
Biggest police department.
They're
in the
probably
entire
the
state.
worst police department in the state,
does
to be honest.
does
with
not require de-escalation, restrict shooting at moving vehicles, require officers to intervene, or require comprehensive reporting of use of force. Michigan State Police met none of the standards the group found.
Wow.
Detroit, Michigan State Police lack
Not
policies.
Michigan State Police. Michigan State Police has had these policies on file for years, and that's what they
Is that
stated
BS?
that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the state police.
Michigan State Police met none of the standards the
No.
group found.
I don't think so.
I find that hard.
Because
to
we
believe,
modeled
too.
all of our policies off
Yeah.
of state police
The
policies
Michigan
generally.
State Police and those
Most people
sorts of
do. They
instances
lead
are
the way. The
pretty
locals
buttoned up.
follow.
Yeah.
And the Michigan State Police, I must say, is when it comes to policy and rules and regulations and things, they're spot on. So that, wherever that article was from, that's they stated that wrong. And they
Well,
were
let's,
deceiving at the beginning. They
we'll
said
do a little
Detroit, Michigan State Police. I think they're meant Detroit
Detroit
Police
Police?
Department is what they mean.
That would make sense. Detroit Police Department, I don't think are very.
Oh, they have
Good fellows.
they have a published use of force policy.
See if it
It's probably pretty light.
de-escalation,
I'm reading it here.
ban of chokeholds, verbal warnings before deadly force.
Yeah. I've been reading that my whole career. When I had one.
Professors.
The old career.
Well, yeah, your
I'm in a
previous
new
life.
career now.
Now you were born again.
Yes.
Well, Jim researches the policy and reports back to us. Those on the Zoom over there, please take this opportunity to talk about whatever you want to.
Yes. What's going on, Zoomers? How was the week? We haven't seen you since last Thursday. Anything exciting?
Well, we had Ellie Sabat on Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
How'd that go?
Week before that, we had Karen McDonald, who was also on Planet Green Trees a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And next week, we're going to have the progressive candidate, Victoria, and I can't think of her last name at the moment, running against Kim Worthy for Wayne County. So there's opportunity to get 3 really good prosecutors in Washtenaw, Wayne, and Oakland County.
What kind of questions did you ask Karen McDonald?
I actually said that, it was a much shorter interview than the one that was on here, and I said I was there for the Planet Green Trees, and it was brought up a few times, but to give you more of an opportunity to describe how you would really change this culture, but coming into Oakland County after so many years of how it's been operating with the sheriff there and all that kind of stuff. She admitted it probably wouldn't happen overnight. But that she was in the position to make a lot of changes soon.
In other news, I understand there's going to be an outdoor drum circle tomorrow night at 8 o'clock at the Psychedelic Shack.
Ooh.
That's at John Sinclair Place on Woodward Avenue.
Now that's news.
And that's outdoors, so it meets with coronavirus protocols that you can stand and watch it from a distance and lift your mask up to hit your pipe.
But you only have to have your own pipe, right?
Yes.
There's no. We're Jamaican style from here on out. I'm guessing.
Well, I think that's a matter of personal choice, but I know my choice is going to be to
Jamaican man.
I don't pass now.
I don't.
Until the
You
vaccine's
puff.
out.
You puff.
No
and
pass.
pass back to yourself.
That's what he does.
That's what you do. You still puff and pass. You just pass back to yourself.
The policy doesn't speak to the specific physical control techniques, but it does talk about enforcement members are justified in using only that force which is necessary to overcome a subject's resistance, to effect an arrest, or maintain proper custody of a prisoner. Use of any technique or device in a manner that is punitive or outside the scope of a member's authority is forbidden. When a resisting subject de-escalates his or her resistance, the enforcement member shall also de-escalate the amount of force used proportionately. So I realize that's broad, but I think that is their attempt in...
It covers it.
Yeah.
Does it speak to a verbal warning before deadly force? No.
So in that article, Michael, the Michigan State Police didn't meet any of those criteria.
Jim, they might have a
I'm saying
separate
to you that I'm
deadly
saying to you
force
they don't
policy
specifically require a
or
verbal
use of
warning. It may be
firearms.
that broad.
That would cover that.
You know, verbal warning before potentially shooting. Maybe if somebody a car leaving, maybe not. I don't know.
Let's take a look here.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't think I wrote this.
I think they
I
could
don't-
probably still shoot you and be
Which I
okay.
let me see where the source of this came from.
Yeah, because I see how that's deceiving.
No.
Detroit, Michigan State Police.
That's not what it says.
That's what it said.
Okay, let me show you. Oh, where'd it go? It's in my Detroit, comma Michigan State Police black policies, and it goes on to describe these right here, which are Michigan State Police.
I don't think that's
and
accurate about
and
the state
departments in
police.
Detroit, Lansing,
Yes, he'd start talking about the
Traverse
locals.
City, Grand Rapids.
They're talking about those local departments in the state of Michigan, and they're stating it wrongly by calling everybody the Michigan State Police. I guarantee
Okay, it could be. Campaign reviewed the policies of Michigan State Police
agencies.
and departments in.
No,
blah,
the Michigan State Police failed in every regard.
Is that what it said?
So this is from MLive.
That's what the article said.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is from
Okay.
MLive. This was published.
Man, I
here.
thought
this
the
was published today.
State Police had all that covered.
And they had an analysis that was performed by MLive, and they evaluated a list of dimensions. Requires de-escalation, has use of force continuum, bans chokeholds and strangleholds, requires warning before shooting, restricts shooting at moving vehicles, requires exhaust all other
sounds
means
like the
before
Canton
shooting,
PD policy.
duty to intervene, comprehensive reporting. The MSP policy contains none.
Really? That is surprising to me. It really is.
Shoot first. Ask
They're just going to
questions
be
later.
willy-nilly. Yeah, shoot first, ask questions later. They know their qualified immunity. Get them off. No worries. Moving on.
I don't feel that.
Get a couple weeks off, paid vacation.
I don't know. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I mean, I don't want to dismiss the gravity of this, but I also am unaware of many instances that I've been exposed to where the Michigan State Police have been accused of using deadly force unjustifiably, and if there have been, I mean, disabuse me of it, but
like for example,
I think I think it's a local.
the question of whether or not the SRT team or someone other than DTF, they have someone else backing them up. That's like
The SWAT team?
Yes, of one of those. You got
Tactical
the
unit.
drug task force. They got their own, but get someone backing up just for training and shit or something, whatever it is, on a resident. Like that, that is it on its face, absent thinking that they've got absent.
I agree that
absent the long and deep library of all those cop movies in the 90s. Take that out. Absent knowing that there's a genuine threat of who's at home, that should not be taking place.
That is how we, as the SWAT, because I was on the SWAT team, and we assisted with these marijuana drug raids all the time for just that reason, for practice.
Oh,
That is sick.
interesting.
Sick. Oh
I mean, that's what it wasn't for practice, but that was stated that these are good practice for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's just like
Because we're making an entry
It's a
and-
dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's like a good dress. You know,
It's a live
Right,
deal.
live.
And you're
going
probably
on.
not going to get
And the
shot.
problem is you're going into these, and like Amanda said, you see, I mean, I remember one in specific. We raided this apartment in Northville Township, and it was like a townhome style apartment deal, I think, because I think there was an upstairs. And we went, and there's babies in there sleeping on the floor, 2, 3, 4 years old babies. I'm like, and just scared to death. I mean, it's probably horrific for these children to see this coming in.
Traumatized for the rest of their lives.
And they don't understand why sometimes the kids
And that-
don't want to be around.
That was the
people in a
philosophy
uniform.
of policing as I came up, was overwhelm them with force, so then you won't meet as much resistance.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right. It sounds like exactly what happens.
And that is what took place for years. And hopefully, the way things are now, maybe things will actually change a little bit. We can hope for some real criminal justice reform, but as slow as they're moving in the legislature on things, there's not going to be anything real done unless, I don't know, something amazing or miraculous happens to cause that. I mean, it's almost like the damn system needs to be blown up and start over again.
I think it's pretty close.
Let's
to
go
that.
back to the original 10 that Moses brought down from the mountain and go from there. What do you think, Michael?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
I'd have to read that scripture.
I said
to be
maybe
able to
we
say
should.
yay or
I said
nay.
the whole criminal justice system probably really needs to be blown up and start over again with the original 10 laws that Moses brought down from the mountain. We could start from there and see how that goes.
Steve, I thought it was he had 3 tablets with 5 laws on each, and as he was coming down the laws, he goes, oops, drops one of the stove tablets. Oops, I got 10 commandments.
What movie was that from?
Mel Brooks.
That wasn't Mel Brooks.
History of the world.
Those Mel Brooks movies, they were something, weren't they?
Yeah. Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Spaceballs.
Watch out.
Yeah, as they're running at the end of the movie, The History of the World, they have a great marijuana scene where they have to delay the Romans. So, I forgot the name of the actor, but he says, papyrus, I need papyrus, because he goes by wild cannabis plants. He goes, he knows that would stop them.
I'm going to go home and watch that now.
We're going to
And
review
by
on
the way,
that. Yeah.
When they were escaping to a ship. And if you look very carefully at the ship, the sail the sail is worded with the Israeli Airlines logo, El Al.
Oh, that's...
This is a sailing ship from 2,000 years ago.
My favorite Mel Brooks movie was Blazing Saddles.
Oh,
That was a good one.
Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
That's another one I'd like to go home and watch.
No, my
That's one of-
mom bought me that DVD
one of
because as a
those,
kid,
yeah.
she says I used to watch that all the time.
It's one of those movies they would never get away with making.
No,
way.
absolutely
That
not.
would
Not
absolutely
today.
be not okay.
today.
There's a lot of that. I sometimes just for fun, I'll go back and watch some of the talk shows from back when my son was little, in the 90s and stuff, and like Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the things that these people are saying to each other would never. That is totally unacceptable. Like some of the way they
So
talk.
would you say we've evolved?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a heightened awareness of communication. Tips. Let's say.
Gregory Hines. That was the guy who was looking for papyrus in the movie History of the World's Part 1.
Jews in space.
Oh, that's another good one. Spaceballs. May the Schwartz be with you.
May the Schwartz be with you.
At the end of History in the World, aren't they? Isn't that Jews in space in the spaceship?
I don't think so. I don't remember that part.
But
I think that's a good place to call it a wrap.
Is that a wrap, Michael?
Oh.
Yeah, let's call it a wrap.
It was a
I think we
good,
covered a lot
good
of stuff,
show.
didn't
We did
Nice
a
convo.
lot of topics.
Yep.
It was a really, really, really good show.
Yes, it was.
Saginaw did the best on this chart, by the way.
Saginaw,
Is that
our
right?
friend.
Yeah,
Our
the only
friend
thing Saginaw didn't have was comprehensive reporting.
that's our buddy. What's his face? Our friend David Light would be.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Hello and welcome to Planet Green Trees. I am Earl, the host of Cannabis Therapy Podcast. And I'm here to give some information about cannabis so that we can have a well-balanced understanding of cannabis. And today we're going to talk about how to tell the sex of a cannabis plant. Yes, by the end of this episode, you should be able to identify if a plant is male and female, and why does it even matter, right? Cool. How to tell the sex of a cannabis plant. Now, I am live from Komorn's office. If you hear Komorn's voice, it is because he is on a rant with a client, and that is okay. But we're going to push through this. Now, how to tell the sex of a cannabis plant. Tommy, you can throw that first image up there. Thank you very much. Genetics. A cannabis plant, believe it or not, female plants and male plants have different genetics and different chromosomes. Males have an XY chromosome and females have an XX chromosome. Now, from naked eye, you can't really tell that, but just look eternally and understand there is a genetic difference between male and female plants. Now, you can really tell the difference between the plants by their genitals. Believe it or not, plants have genitals. And for males, it's more pistils, and for females, it's more stamen. And you can tell the difference. There's an image up there right now. You can see the pistils look a little different than what the female stamen looks like. And almost those pistils will eventually give you a sign as to how they are going to be a male. And I'm going to show you that picture pretty soon. But usually, you can't really tell the difference between a male or female until about at least 2 to 4 weeks into that plant's growth cycle. And sometimes you won't even tell the plant difference between male and female until about 2 weeks into the flower cycle. So just because you saw during the vegetative cycle, and that's the vegetative cycle, that's when it's just growing. It's not flowering, it's just growing tall. And depending if you're on the indoors, that means you're giving it at least 18 hours of light, okay? Up to 24 hours, because it's only 24 hours in a day. And then, at some point, you flip it to flowering, which is 12 hours of lightness, 12 hours of darkness. And you could have been vegging for 6 weeks, and it looks like it's a female, but then 2 weeks in the flower, bang, you find a male. And what do? We're going to talk about that soon. So, some other ways, we're going to put up another picture for me, Tommy, is how you can identify signs of a male plant. And the most common way of finding out if this plant is a male is by the pollen sacs. Yes, those pistils now turn into some kind of pollen sac. And literally, it looks like little balls. Like a plant has balls, and you can tell that those are there by looking right in between the pistils, or right at the point of the branches. You see little pistils. You also can see little ball sacs, and you look at that image, you can kind of see it right there too. Another sign said you do not sight it. Remember, I told you in 2 to 4 weeks of its growth cycle, you can tell if it's a male or female, but sometimes you can't really tell until it's in the flowering stage. But one of the signs you could tell is during the veg stage. If you don't see the pollen sacs, it's growing fast and it's growing taller than all of your other plants. most males grow a lot taller and faster than females. So that's a sign to kind of like, let me watch this guy. Another one is it grows more straight. A lot of females tend to be a little bit more bushier. So if it's growing more straight up, taller, faster, another sign it could be a male. And then less flowers. Typically, you can't tell that until it's in the flower stage. And if you're really seeing less flowers at that point, it's probably too late to take it out of your grow room, and you may as well just ride it out. And I'm going to talk about later, well, it's okay. Male plants are okay. We as males should be accepted in society as plants. And then also tighter clusters. So you see a lot of male plants have a little bit tighter nodes. Females a little bit more spaced out, and male. So those are some signs that you can, and tricks that you can use to identify a male. And the reason why people or growers prefer females over male plants, well, females typically produce more THC. They're typically more potent. Typically, if you separate the females from the males, something called sensibililia happens, and the plants become more plumper, because the plants, if the females are getting plump, looking for pollen, it's not there, and they just keep getting more plump. And that gives you a higher yield. So that's a lot of the reasons why growers will separate females and males. And also, females have a natural higher cannabinoid and terpene profile. Cannabinoids are talked about briefly. You can always go to our Cannabis Therapy podcast to look at other episodes that explain the endocannabinoid system and how it pairs with cannabinoids. But in a short sentence, cannabinoids are hundreds of different compounds, chemical compounds in the plant. There's over hundreds of different cannabinoids, such as THC is one of the most popular cannabinoids. CBD is a popular cannabinoid. THCA, CBN. So there's a lot of, and there's hundreds of those. And then there's also terpenes. Terpenes really give you the aroma, the smell of it as well. And tied in with some of the flavonoids, it can also give you certain tastes as well. But when you pair those cannabinoids with those terpenes, you get effects. Some can make you more sleepy, some can make you more calm, some can make you horny, whatever it is, all those chemical compounds, it's like an orchestra. All of it plays. It's not just the flute, not just the drums, it all plays like a symphony. So females have a higher concentration of a lot more cannabinoids and terpenes. And then also, they do not produce seeds. Typically, they do not produce seeds on an average unless they're stressed out. And seeds, which gets me to the point of it's okay to have some male plants, because seeds right now kind of, there's been a stigma that if cannabis had seeds, that it's kind of low quality cannabis. And that typically came from the history of, when it was in the early days of Prohibition, a lot of cannabis coming from Mexico or these areas where they kind of had brickweed, where it's just growing out in the wild. There's male and females that pollinate each other, and it's really kind of low quality weed put in bricks, sent over here, and people saw that association with, well, it had seeds, must be that brickweed. But you can grow high quality cannabis even though it does have seeds. Males, you can even hemp itself, going craft hemp. Males, you can still produce and give the same love and care as you would just females, and it will taste just the same, and it tastes just as good. So you don't have to just kill your whole crop. You can still ride that out, grow that, give the same love and care, and it still will be consumable. But the last thing is kind of like watermelon. If, say, genetic watermelon that was modified could produce no seeds, and then you have natural watermelon with seeds. Say it wasn't genetically modified, it was actually, there is male or there's female watermelons that doesn't have seeds, and there's male watermelons that do have seeds. End of the day, they both will taste like watermelon. And I get how having a male watermelon with seeds could get annoying, trying to, spit out the seeds and picking them out. But at the end of the day, you still could enjoy the watermelon and get to the juiciness. Ha! Cool. So where to start if you're looking to grow and say you do want female seeds. One of the ways is you want female plants, one of the ways is you can source auto-flowering seeds. And pretty much what an auto-flowering seed is that no matter what, the life cycle is within 8, 10, 11 weeks, this plant is going to flip into flower and be ripe and ready to harvest. But just because it's auto-flowering doesn't mean that it's not a male in there as well. So you still got to watch it. You still got to watch it for 2 to 4 weeks. You still got to watch it as it begins to auto-flower. But a lot of auto-flowering seeds have a higher percentage of being female. Another higher percentage of being female seed type or category is feminized seeds. Feminized seeds, if you recall what I said earlier, is that, well, females can produce seeds. What? Yes, females can produce seeds if you stress them out. And it could be because it was too hot, it was too cold, too much, it was too less of humidity, too much humidity, too much light. It's an art to growing, and if you don't keep that balance, that female plant could get stressed, overfeeding it, underfeeding it, the soil. So all these things, how much wind is blowing on it. So it could get stressed out, and it could produce seeds despite you not having any male plants in the garden. So when that female produces seeds, believe it or not, those are feminized seeds. And it is about a 90% chance that that seed from that female plant that was stressed out is also a female. So there's people actually go into business and actually stress out plants on purpose to produce feminized seeds so that people will pay more for that higher guarantee that their seeds or plants will actually be females. So that's feminized seeds. But you still got to watch them. There's a 90% chance. So if you're really trying to keep them separate, you still want to watch them for at least 2 to 4 weeks into flower. And then the really sure way to understand if you're really trying to keep your males separate from your females and you really want just females for all the benefits we talked about earlier is cloning. If you cut a clone from a female plant, 100% of the time it is going to be also the same genetic of that clone that you make. Just as if you cut a clone of yourself, most likely if I cut a clone of Earl, that other person will look and act just like Earl. It would not be a female Earl unless this is a Star Wars movie and something happened where that happened. But this is not Star Wars, this is reality. We're in Detroit, Michigan. That doesn't happen yet. So that is how to tell the sex of a cannabis plant. I hope by listening to this, you got a well-balanced understanding of cannabis and cannabis products, and you learned something that you can spread. Please like and share the Planet Green Trees podcast with a friend, and also the Cannabis Therapy podcast. Check it out on YouTube, subscribe, like it, and even if you don't like that friend, send it to them also, because maybe they will start using cannabis and they become cooler. Who knows? Peace out.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.